Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Pixar. I'm Reti 4, this is GreyJedi 91.
Hey guys.
And this is Evannova 95.
We're good, but you guys are incredible.
Oh god, the new Connor of the cheese factor, I see. Matt.
Someone has to do it when he's not here.
Matt, take us away with a summary of why we're doing this.
Okay, so we're talking about Incredibles 2 because Incredibles 2 came out this summer. I got to see it much earlier than Callan did, right? Because it was postponed because of World Cup. We need to tell that story. We need to tell it because we already recorded a review of Incredibles, which you'll have seen by now. But because it's not necessarily going to be clear, that was recorded like 3 months ago, at least.
It was the day before The Incredibles was coming out, basically. And we go, we're going to see it tomorrow. Yeah. And then I queued up the tickets for the Incredibles cinema, and I was like, why isn't it working? Why isn't it? Where is it? And then find out that it's been postponed a month for Britain and Europe. Yeah. So why you do this?
And at this point, we're seeing it like a month after we all finally did get to see it. So some time has passed. But anyway, we're talking about Incredibles 2. I'm going to go through in great detail about our thoughts on this latest Pixar film, the 20th film overall from Pixar. And later on, we're going to be, discussing more Pixar films in general, and also doing like sort of a countdown, ranking our top 20 favorites, from 20 to 1, best to worst, whatever. Worst to best, I guess that is. Anyhow, let's get into it. Talk about Incredibles 2.
Yes.
Where do we start?
Well,
here?
we start with a long-awaited, by 14 years, quote-unquote, resolution to The Underminer.
Yes, everyone's favorite villain.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I wanted the sequel as soon as I walked out with the first film. I'm glad we finally got this little introduction here, and it picked up straight away and didn't have a time jump or anything. Very entertaining.
Yeah, it is sadly retconning everyone's, favorite video game, Incredibles: The Underminer for PS3, which everyone played.
That. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that one.
Literally, I've never heard about it.
There's a reason, but it is ironic because this is arguably one of the movies that people were begging for a sequel the most, and yet it didn't happen for the longest time.
Yeah, we might not discuss this.
Everyone's talked about that by now. We don't need to really go over that too much.
Yeah, we might not discussed it in one of the other recordings we've done, how, we're in a world where Cars 2 and 3 exist. Why did this take so long? But for those detractors complaining about the length of time, they were doing other things. This is, we've had Ratatouille and Coco and all manner of others since that point.
They've made several good films from Pixar since this happened, but like Brad Bird, alone, his team has done different things, besides just Incredibles since then. So yeah. And also like live action films. I know he did Tomorrowland, which I've never seen and has sort of meh reviews. But he also did one of the more recent Mission Impossible films. And so he's a busy person.
Yeah, but they finally managed to free up his schedule and give us the sequel we've all been waiting for. So diving straight in again. Love the sequence. High action.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say the irony, because I don't remember if this was pointed out in the last recording or not, because it's been so long since we had that. I don't remember what was said. But I know that you remembered Tony Reidinger's name, which I didn't. Yes, he was just somebody that Violet was interested in. And it was interesting seeing this film start with him, and okay, so we're going to get his account. Even though he looks different, he had a massive character redesign. They redesigned every character from the ground up just for the technology having improved. They had to redo everyone's character model, but he looks different, more so than anybody else does. But yeah, getting his perspective, and they're sort of doing the Men in Black thing. You could tell that that's the setup of what's going on, but we're getting his version of the story, and then we get the Underminer sequence, which was immediately my favorite thing about these movies. Arguably, is the musical score. I love that. It's so iconic. And I think that this score is as good or even better than the first one. That's one thing I'll say right up front.
Completely agree on that.
I can agree with that, yeah.
The action of this scene is just massively improved by the fact that we're getting the reintroduction to this very unique, while also kind of archetypal musical style, because this, it's indicative of the likes of Bond, the likes of Mission Impossible, but at the same time it's got that unique flair to it, and it's the first time we've been able to see it, anything new from it for a very long time now. So just the nostalgia impact of having that kick straight in as soon as we jump in with the action. To say nothing of the fact that the animation has been jumped up as well. The quality all around as being just thrown in your face very quickly, and much the same way the first film did. You know how we talked about the initial sequence of that kind of introducing the elements of the film, what we can expect moving forward. This was like the nice, paired up reintroduction.
Agreed.
I mean, in many ways, the original Incredibles kind of set the benchmark for how to do, 3D animated action at that time. And again, this movie just kind of shows us what can be done with the 3D model in terms of action. And I think the movie's action really improves from it. In fact, I would say overall, this movie does have better action than the first film.
Yeah, better action for sure, and which is not a slight against the first one. The first one's really good.
It came out 14 years ago, guys. It needs time to...
It really holds up.
Like I said, the first one set the precedent, and then this one just, put it up.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
One of the few things. It's one of the few things that it's inarguable, because whenever you have a sequel in general, but especially like something that's as loved as the original Incredibles, the sequel is going to get like this versus the original treatment. Like that just happens. This is one of the things that's inarguable about this. This has better animation, and like the action, I think, is just so dynamic and fluid and great. I love it.
They've not just raised the benchmark from what they did previously. They've raised the benchmark for 3D animation again in the modern era. For me, they've just the fluidity of the dynamism, the interaction of the characters with the world around them, how connected they feel to what you're seeing on screen, and also just the storyboard choices. The not just how they're showing us what they're showing, but the decisions they made for what they were going to show in the first place. I agree with pretty much everything I saw, and it just popped in that very first introduction scene. But yeah, we get the engagement against the Underminer and the conclusion of that with the family kind of, shall we say, interrupting his attempt at a heist.
Yeah. Which it's funny when you think about how much coincided with like that one day. Like Syndrome attacks, the robot comes, here's the Underminer, the supers have returned. And then you have like the Devers kind of rolling through, which we'll get to them. But I mean, it is like, wow, that was like a momentous day in the history of the world.
Yeah.
To say the least.
It's plot convenience, but hey, we got to get a plot started somehow.
Yeah, like the first film where we said
someone should make like a fanfic about like what would have happened if Syndrome won, but then the Underminer showed up and like how he would have reacted to that. That could be funny.
Yeah, but the Underminer made for a good introduction, I think, definitely. Just the fact that we'd seen him before, we wanted to see what happened with him. Even though we don't get an ultimate conclusion for his story, he could easily come back again at some point.
Yeah. If they make a third one, he's going to show up again in the third one. It'll be like a running gag.
Yeah, I liked that we meet again. I liked that the conclusion of the sequence, though, even though they don't manage to capture him, was still satisfying. They gave everyone a lot to do. We got to see high stakes tension and action built up, tied to following up from the finale of the previous film, because it's difficult to kind of keep the stakes high in an introduction level when you're following up from that.
It was something that
moment in the life of a super.
Yeah, it was a decision that I didn't exactly expect them to make, but it occurred to me very late in the advertising process. I go, there isn't a time jump. They might just go ahead and start with like the Underminer. It wasn't something that I called, but I was open to it, and sure enough, that's what happened. So it was an interesting way to start the film.
Yeah, that doesn't disappoint.
The interesting takeaway from this scene, aside from sort of reintroducing the family dynamic and showing what everyone can do, and also getting Frozone back in the picture as sort of the family friend, because he has an extended role in this film over his in the first one. Apart from all that, the interesting takeaway is that the people, the normies or whatever, us, would have been better off in the long run had the supers not interfered on this particular occasion. And therein sort of lies the start of the plot,
It's the fallout of
and
this
it's not one of
incident.
those cases where you could argue, oh, maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. It's like, no, they definitely would have been better off. In this instance, if they just let him get away.
It's recapturing the kind of point of the supers having to disappear in the first place, and saying why they couldn't just jump back into in the scenario anytime previous to this. But we then get the introduction of the Devers, or at least one of them, who witnesses this sequence and sees the opportunity it represents. Because even though the fallout is inevitable and does happen as we'd expect, with the price, the cost of everything being tallied up and not in the city's favour, it would have just been easier for him to get away with all the money, as far as they're concerned. To say nothing of the insurance, they must be really big on supers, at least those companies. he sees the opportunity for what this represents, and that's like Matt said, it kicks off with a plot because we don't see it yet. It comes in a little while, but that's what sets off the impetus of the entire film.
And after that, we see the family getting relocated by Agent Dicker, since their house still hasn't been rebuilt since it got destroyed in the last movie.
Mm-hmm. And the program's also been shut down is like his revelation there. So he's kind of like checking out of the plot at this point, or letting them know that he can't do this again, or he can't be of much use. And so and also it's notable that his character has been recast. He's one of the few that has been recast because the original guy was Bud Luckey, who was an animator at Pixar primarily, but also a voice talent. But he passed away at the beginning of this year, so he couldn't finish the role, I guess. And they recast him with Jonathan Banks, who's currently playing Mike on Better Call Saul, and played the same character on Breaking Bad, for those who know that stuff. It'll mean something to Antoine. He's a fellow fan of that series.
But yeah, we also get both of you note as well, as that Violet realizes that before the sequence kind of started up and they joined the fight with the Underminer proper, Tony Ranger saw her without a mask because she threw it down to the ground in frustration. Bit of an odd choice there, Violet, but fair enough. She lets her dad know, who then obviously tells Dicker, and he goes off to sort that situation, which is our introduction to the film by itself. So it kind of closes that little loop, and leads into some of the events that will happen later on.
They do the whole Men in Black thing where they record a statement and then erase his memory of the entire day, which leads to a subplot that happens later with Violet.
Right. Now, so now the family's stationed at like a sort of motel where they're, I guess, weighing like their options on like what their next move is going to be. You know?
Yeah.
Right. Which this is basically the scene that was in the trailer. Like that scene was basically the trailer, pretty much. You know.
But also expanded
it
upon.
defines who I am. What?
That moment was obviously telegraphed by the trailer, but
and he's
it was
I
still
don't know.
funny.
I saw it on television.
Yeah, really funny. But it was expanded beyond that, of course, because the scene is surprisingly long. You'd think that most of the content, it even has a kind of moment where you think it's going to cut away and it stops itself, but it doesn't. It carries on, and I like the fact that it defies that kind of cinematic trope because it ties it in with the realism of the scene. It real life conversations don't get to cut away. So when the kind of flow of the conversation stops, with Helen interrupting and kind of trying to put a stop to the thing, it doesn't stop. It carries on, and the conversation that they're having, it's poignant for the film, but also for the family at this time. It's not just here's the plot, here's the discussion we have to set up the framing of what's coming forward. You feel like you're actually watching a family discussing things around the table, which was in the first film as well.
Yeah, we had this in the first
one.
Yeah. But the thing is, also with that is that it's a lot of people get like, this thing has like sequel-itis. It's just the same thing. But it's like, it's not, because like the conversation is different. This same setup has happened before, but the subject matter is markedly different. And I think that people need to give things more than just a cursory glance. Like look deeply at what you're really seeing. It's not the same scene, same setup, but it's a different takeaway from the scene, which is what makes a legitimate sequel for me.
I mean, people have more than one conversation with their family throughout the course of their entire life, so
especially around the dinner table,
yeah.
But the fact that they're talking about something of interest as well, it's not just as I said, plot exposition. They're actually discussing the kind of crux of their own personal family issue. They enjoyed fighting together, as a family as well. I like the fact that there was a focus on the fighting as a family. That was really cool. But they enjoyed acting as supers, and this is reintroducing the fact for them that it was fun. I'm not arguing that, but we can't do it. It's against the law, and it's kind of the law versus morality of the situation.
Yeah, it's an underlying theme of the film, and it's a particular point of interest from Violet. She's usually the one questioning that. Like, so we follow the law because it's the law, or we do what's right? Which one? This is where parenting gets tough, so like that's sort of the plot in some way. Yeah, it's an aspect of it. But what were you about to say, Evan?
I was just about to say this scene shifts, like whereas this conversation is more the parents and the children, this next one shifts between just Helen and Bob out on the poolside, which Callan, you noted for a special animation comment.
Yeah, that was like a note that he put it in the notes. This is the scene where like I first noticed. Oh wow, like just the ambience, the way that they've. I never know the word when it's like animation.
Yeah.
But the way that they've lit the scene, it just looks so much more, without being like a complete overworking of the first film style. Like the colors seem to pop, and at the same time, there's deeper contrast. There's a more intense.
It's greater vibrance
moodiness
in all of the colors.
Yeah,
everything stands
just
out
the way
more.
it's. Yeah, if you can call it set design or like whatever it's called in animation, I'm not an animator. Sorry, guys, I don't know these terms. It's brilliant, which is obviously, I mean, it's Pixar, but I mean, it's so good. It's worthy of note. I love that you can see like the water, that what is that, like the ripples, like the refractive ripples or whatever, the shadows almost of the water on their faces.
The fact that this is a very mundane, motel side pool with not really that much going on, and it still manages to stand out. The conversation that they're having is the focus here, and we don't. Obviously, you do care. It's a very good conversation by itself, but the animation standing out and striking at you in this moment just screams quality for it. Because animation isn't supposed to stand out, and when it does, outside of action scenes, it's usually not the best thing to happen, and yet somehow they've found that perfect balance where it does here and doesn't take away from the scene. It enhances it.
Yeah,
Particularly tying to the
because
ambience
it's not
specifically.
distracting. That's just
Yes,
it.
yeah.
It complements it. It doesn't overtake it.
Yeah, there is something sort of dazzling about it, though. Like, these are not realistic characters at all. Brad Bird has commented specifically, like, Mr. Incredible's hands are like 3 times the size of his feet. These are caricatures. So they don't look realistic, but it's that believable aspect. These are, like, believably alive. And we'll get to, like, there's a particular character in this film that we'll talk about later who has, like, just one of my favorite scenes ever on an animation level, who just really, I think, embodies that believably alive thing. But this is the reintroduction of Frozone, who we can talk about because, he's been contacted by billionaires like that want the supers to come back. Yeah. And that sort of happened off screen. But he's sort of bringing that proposal to Helen and Bob now because they're friends. And, of course, it's like a package deal. They want everyone, not just one of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, they want they want like the mainstays of the super community, which they're pretty much the only ones left.
All 3 of them. They want all 3 of them. Yeah.
It helps, of course, that they were the ones who were directly responsible for, or appeared to be directly responsible for, the success in the first film with the Omni droid. So it makes sense that they want to pick these guys up specifically, and not just because they happen to be the ones that dealt with this latest occurrence. It's a continuous thing. It fits the story. And he introduced the idea to them.
They don't really seem to be very many supers left anyway.
Well, yeah, that as well, yeah.
Because it wasn't just that they were made illegal. Like, as we know from the first one, Syndrome killed most of them. At least the ones that didn't get themselves killed by having a cape.
They get their old costumes, and then they go to the Devers building.
Yeah, I love the amount of glee that you see on their eyes when they get the costumes ready and they sneak out. It's they don't exactly do a very good job of hiding what they're doing, but it's such a fun scene to watch. You don't exactly care. And when we get introduced, or they get introduced as well to the Devers in person after Frozone leads them to it.
Yeah, Winston Dever at the start because his sister arrives sort of late to the party. But Winston Dever, who's voiced by Bob Odenkirk, again, who plays Jimmy McGill on Better Call Saul and Saul Goodman on Breaking Bad, who is, and that character is like an oily sort of lawyer. He has he has sort of a heart of gold, at least to start, like that character does.
But make a proposition.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, and everyone went, when they just heard the voice, anyone who knew the voice actor, okay, here's our villain. So I mean, like from the trailer, like that's what everyone was thinking. But this character, there's they throw a bit of a twist into this, which we'll get to eventually in this conversation. But he runs like a telecommunications company, and he's a multi-billionaire and mogul, and so it's his
father
desire.
Specifically, yeah.
It's his desire to sort of usher in like a new golden age of supers, because he was raised with like this sort of idealistic, view of like humanity like needs the supers to really thrive, because his father, as you just mentioned, had that sort of viewpoint as well.
Even worked with them, help set up a communication network to give supers direct lines to the authorities and the government and each other and all that, which we learned later didn't always come in handy.
Yeah, we learned pretty much in the same scene after the introduction of his sister, Evelyn, who shows up carrying blueprints and sort of like awkwardly meanders into the shot. She is I don't know when we want to talk about this.
Yeah,
but,
it's difficult to place her whole shtick.
Mm-hmm.
She's called Evelyn Dever, so
Yeah, I mean, her name is Evelyn Dever, guys. So if you were able to figure out that she was the villain, kudos, I guess. But really, like, was it that hard? I mean, come on. But yeah, and I just joking because that's the major complaint I've heard about this movie is that like the villain is too obvious, and I go, really, it wasn't though. Like, I mean, it is obviously her, but Winston. I was never quite sure what to make of Winston. I've been up through the end of the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
It does keep you guessing, like legitimately, on where his motivations ultimately lie.
Yeah, he's kind of the red herring.
It had to be one or both of them, and that was the thing. It turns out to only be one of them, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure that would be the case.
That's the thing. He's kind of the red herring's red herring. For anyone who thinks, oh, she's too obvious, she can't be the villain, and they're thinking, oh, maybe it's him. Maybe his whole shtick is that he's trying to bring the supers back at whatever cost. And the fact that it keeps you guessing for me makes up for the fact that she is relatively obvious in her execution because you don't need the twist to be good. You can have an obvious villain and have it still played well. And I think it does work here for the reasons we'll get into as we move forward.
Yeah,
and I think people placed like a lot of emphasis on the movie was relying on there being a twist in order to be good. And if that was the case, if that were true, then yeah, fail. But that's not what I see her. Her strength as a villain to me doesn't come from the way she's revealed to be the villain. Like that's not what makes her interesting at all. So I can agree with that. Like if you're able to call that she's the villain, yeah, it's telegraphed. Her name is Evil Endeavor, but that's not the point of her. But we can discuss much more of that later when it becomes relevant.
You kind of get drift on the scenes on the interactions she has with the characters and what they're trying to tell, the story they're trying to tell with that character through the various different points as we move forward. So we'll get there when we get there.
But Winston sort of woos our heroes by like knowing their old cheesy, theme songs and things like that.
Yeah.
And what I will say about Winston that I love the man's dress sense. Like he has a really nice suit. I like his suit. Cool.
The way he moves as well.
Man snappy, that's for sure.
It's difficult to get that kind of character right without making them slimy, and he never gets slimy for me. He's suave and precisely.
Like he's just playing one of his other characters. He can do that so well, where he is like a sleaze, but he's like a charming. He's a truly charming sleazebag.
Yeah,
like hey, come on, that sort of deal.
Yeah, he's a very good schmoozer. Yeah,
and the fact that it's such earnest schmoozing in this film, even though you may be questioning that at this point in the film, the fact that it is genuinely just him being an earnest and charming individual, it makes it all the more appreciable for me. But we get introduced to their kind of backstory and what happened with the
backstory,
the father, with him kind of over reliant on the supers and that kind of being the crux of the whole ethos behind him and his sister, which is introduced here as well actually because she raises objections to the way this happened.
Yeah, the idea being that they had a panic room. They could have just used that instead of being over reliant on like the supers showing up, and I think a lot of people misunderstand what Evelyn meant by that. And what I mean by people, I mean like detractors of this film. Because they go, oh, well, she's going along with Winston's plot to bring the supers back until she isn't. It's like, no, she never was. She's actively sabotaging it the whole way, as one would do. So she makes sense. I just wanted to say that real quick. The one thing I will say is that when looking back on it, even though these are superhero films, you don't actually get any hero's origin story. The only origin stories we see belong to the antagonists, which I think is interesting in both films. Because that was true of Syndrome as well.
Yeah, I really like that as well. And the fact that we don't need to dive into we get little tidbits here and there from the hero side, but we don't need more than that because one, origins are overplayed in general. We don't need to see the origin of every single superhero that ever was or will be. But also, the focus is supposed to be on the family dynamic. We can't afford to spend time on everyone's individual kind of origins. We just need the snapshots, and they've done that very well. Even with the little tidbits they give us in this film, kind of Elastigirl's little details that Mr. Incredible himself didn't know about. Oh, you didn't miss anything. It is literally that. Nothing about that matters. So we're focusing on the villains because you have to understand where they're coming from to buy them as a threat.
Yeah,
Hawkeye,
when you mentioned that,
Black Widow, MCU.
Yeah. When you mentioned that about the things that about Elastigirl, I always want to call her Miss Incredible, even though that's not her
I
name.
know, right?
Right.
When there are things about her life that even Bob doesn't know, it's interesting to remind ourselves that as sleek and cool as like the technology is in this is supposed to be like roughly the 60s. It's like this weird sort of alternate history verse.
Future.
But in either case, it predates social media, which is actually like part of the plot of this. Is like people are still sort of tied to their televisions, as we'll see with our villain later on. So it's like you have a different culture. So it is interesting that it's feasible, that like, yeah, there's going to be things about her life that Mr. Incredible doesn't know, even though they've been married for quite a long time at this point, because there's no out their cell phones to take pictures of everything, these days.
Communication is key, guys.
Yeah. But speaking about Elastigirl, we find that she's the one that's to be selected for this this proposal that the Devas have for the supers, and that they need to put their best foot forward in bringing them back into the spotlight, because they can't afford the kind of collateral damage that was involved with the latest spree with the Underminer, and that tends to be more Bob's specialty, shall we say.
I mean, when you consider the nature of his abilities, and even Frozone's, she is definitely the most well-equipped to minimize collateral damage.
Yeah, she has the best track record and the least destructive powers, and I love that is the reason why she's chosen. It's not because she's a woman. Like, there's no, that's the other criticism, is, they made Mr. Incredible a stay-at-home dad, and this is feminazi bullshit, and it's like, it is not.
It is not in the slightest.
Yeah, she is not chosen because she is a woman. Even like the brother-sister team, it's not like the sister goes, we need a woman to take, like, no. She's just like the least expensive option. And it's funny how like insurance sort of like is like this background idea in both films. Like Mr. Incredible used to work for an insurance firm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, whoa, let's not test the insurance will pay for everything thing. Like, let's not do that. I love the way he delivered that line.
Yeah.
Let's not test that immediately. Let's try to minimize. Let's try to mitigate our costs where and when we can.
Apart from anything, in terms of like the creative decision to have her take the focus for the better part of the film, that's not an illogical choice. It works the same with the fact that Violet has more screen time than Dash. This is the exact opposite of what happened in the original film. In the original, everyone was present, yes, but the focus was on Bob and, in terms of the kids' focus anyway, Dash. So having
Dash
it flipped over and including the other two, it makes perfect sense for me.
Yeah. We can get into whether or not Dash was like used properly all the way through, but I'm definitely okay with him taking a back seat.
Yes,
I don't know if they knew what to do with him, but I'm fine with Violet having more screen time, especially because of what they did. And Jack for the most part. I think they went a little overboard with Jack in one scene, but that was it. I like
pinpoint that one. I think we have the same opinion on that one. Because I was worried they were going to overuse him in general. But yeah, the one thing I want to know about this scene in particular, though, is that I had people had an issue with the way Bob reacted to the whole kind of his place in the film and the plot specifically. Now I don't have a problem with it at all because of what we get later on, but this one scene is where I would have dialed it down just a little bit. His reaction and his initial reaction in general to this proposal was a little over the top for me. I would have had it just dial it back to keep it a little bit more. I don't even know the word for it. Just
I'm okay with. The thing is, like, I thought you would have said that about the everything's fine, honey.
Oh
like,
yeah,
but
that's
that's
another one. Yeah, it's just his reaction to this entire situation. When it gets to the step where it's resolving it, and it does get to that step pretty quickly. The stuff they show us, the individual moments they show us that kind of establish that he needs to get to that point. I would have tweaked them a little bit because it seemed a bit over the top, a bit. You can see the hand of the writer for me in those moments.
I'm okay with it, if only because like it's a very minor, not even complaint for me, but it's such a minor part of the plot. To me, I was going, oh no, he's gonna be like, I don't want to be stay-at-home dad, and like that's not what I'm like. I go, that's gonna be like the whole movie. That's like 5 minutes of the movie.
Precisely. That's why it's the slightest of criticisms. It's just a tweak for me because it's the fact that they does resolve it so quickly.
Yeah, same with me. The fact that they don't dwell on it for the entire course of the film and it does get resolved so efficiently really just doesn't make it an issue for me.
Yeah, because a lot of films, this would have been the central tension for his character. It would have been his arc, and it's not. It's just the first step. I just would have remodeled the first step's execution a little bit. That's all. But we get his reaction to it is passed on, and we get the returning to the hotel to kind of discuss the proposal and whether or not they're going to accept it. Nice little scene.
We should also probably mention that one of the focal points for this program is to have the super under constant surveillance by their cameras and their technicians in order to better track damage, in order to better control media outlets.
Yes,
that is a
very good point. Yeah,
and at that point, unless you're really dumb, I think even kids would be clued into this. It's one of the siblings, or both, is the villain. I mean, he runs a telecommunication company, and so we're gonna just stick these cameras on you. We're not gonna make you look. Yeah, we're not spying on you, and we're not gonna make you look stupid. We're never gonna do that. Trust us. It's and Winston, to his credit, means it.
Yeah.
But it's you, as an audience member, it's yeah, of course you're gonna know that it's one of them. The movie's not really hiding it from you.
It's also an extremely valid idea. The fact that they don't, all they ever see is what the media shows them, the general public, so that their opinion is controlled by what is shown to them on the TV. With this, it allows them to kind of show the real work that is being done, and prior to the the wreckages that are being left behind.
I mean, you get a first-person view of what they're doing. I mean, it does not get any clearer than that. Yeah,
which is very cool. I love the idea just alone, even if it wasn't to do with the plot. But yeah, we get the return to the hotel, and the situation is being discussed by the family, or specifically Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible, or Bob and Helen, really, in this situation. I like that they still have to, they still have concerns about this, or at least Elastigirl does. Bob is sitting there kind of all excited, and yes, we get to be supers again, and the big kid about it. But she's thinking, yeah, but this is still, this will make me technically an outlaw. This is still an illegal act, and yes, we're working to frame it in a way that will get us out of the situation and work for the better. But she's not just immediately gung ho about it. At the same time, she's not necessarily specifically right, because he's bringing up the argument that was, a callback to the table scene where they're talking about, well, sure, what are we supposed to teach our kids? This is, you don't do what's right because the law says so. They know that the law is wrong here, and that's kind of the crux again of the conversation. It's not just about what they are or aren't willing to do. It's about why they should be willing to do it.
Yeah, which I think, especially for something that is sort of grounded in sort of this weird sort of alternate history, sort of mid 20th century sort of time.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like an Age of Tomorrow thing's ironically a good comparison to the world they're creating, sort of like past but still sort of pseudo future sort of thing going.
Yeah, exactly. In a way, it's almost like that sort of Batman animated series vibe as well, because that's very much has that past and future thing, and also at the same time present. But yeah, that it's even topical now. But that concept that the law isn't necessarily right. Those aren't the kind of stories they used to tell in with those kinds of in that era, the law was the law. We stand for truth, justice, and the American way. That kind of thing. This is a much more nuanced thing, and it's interesting having that around this sort of nuclear family sort of setup. With the idea being what's the world we're leaving for our kids. So I think that's they have several conversations in this film that are very interesting. And I think probably will be very boring if you're a 5-year-old, but that's what I mean is these are not, I said this about the first one. To me, these are not kids movies. They can appeal to kids in some ways, but these are not movies designed with a small age group in mind.
They're just really good superhero films, and they're thought provoking. They're thematic. They have the tonal tonal differences between the rest of the Pixar films.
Wolf in sheep's clothing, as they say.
Yeah, mention the tone actually. It's a notably lighter film compared to the first one. Oh, it's not really the word. It's less dark than the first film, which I've heard a lot of people talk about, and whether or not that's a good or bad thing. I think that was necessary given the fact that the film has brought the family together at this point. It needed to be a focus on the plot difficulties rather than the character ones.
You can't do the first one again, because, well, then you'd have just the first one again. And B, you literally can't. It's sort of like lightning in a bottle. There are things about that you can't do again. You can't have Bob mentally coming to terms with a world where I've lost my family. He already had that scare in the first one. You can't have Helen and Bob's marriage on the line where she thinks he's cheating on her, because that just happened. And they've just moved beyond that. So they had to, I think, sort of stray away from some of those darker undertones. But it doesn't mean that this is a light film. It's just comparatively lighter. So I agree with what you're saying.
And the fact that the central tension has to be shifted from the internal issue with the family, which it was obviously the first film, to the external one, that how they are dealing with a greater problem. And I think this, it being this whole superhero perception problem, that was an excellent one to focus on, because if nothing else, it gives them a place to expand on with further stories in the future. It wasn't a case of this is a sequel that just ends everything. It now gives them opportunities to work with future projects. Yeah. Whether they want to or not, it just gives them that opportunity.
And there was more than one area where I thought they could go deeper with that in this film that they didn't, but that's okay. I mean, I'm all right with the fact that didn't happen, but there was a few expectations I had that didn't happen, but we'll get to that when it comes to that point.
But ultimately, Helen accepts the offer and chooses to become Elastigirl again, and we get
with that. Yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, with the acceptance of the job offer comes the new house. Winston
perks.
just has several of these amazing billionaire pads lying around that he's not using.
And
so go
boy,
ahead
is it a pad.
Yeah, it was another one of those instances where they were just showing off the animation for no reason, which I have no problem with. It's just
no
fun.
problem whatsoever.
Also, it's nice because it kind of bigs up the foreboding sense of, okay, nothing's this good, this easy. Something's going to go wrong.
Things are going too well.
Yeah, this is too good a perk. So it helps.
Easy,
It's not focusing on that. It's not trying to go da-na or anything with the tone, but you get that in the back of your mind as they're kind of just enjoying their new home.
Yeah, and a lot of people have pointed this one out, but this is the start of this is the first evidence that they don't have really a plot for Dash in this film, where he's just the little brother. Because all he does is go around pushing buttons at random and causing mayhem, and that's kind of his thing in this film. Which isn't to say that he's a horribly obnoxious brat or anything, but he really just is the troublemaking little kid in this movie. He doesn't really have an arc or a plot associated with him.
Yeah, it doesn't have much to do at all. And I have no problem that he's taken a backseat, as I said earlier. Him being used less is absolutely appropriate. I just think that when they did use him, they should have used him in a different and better way. And maybe just a tiniest bit more as well, but only a very smidge.
I love how he relates to his father in this one, but I mean, when it's just Dash doing stuff, there's not very much depth there in this particular film.
Yeah, and that's when it starts, when they start playing around with the gadget in the house, and we get to see again just them showing off the animation that they can do with the waterfall and just the motion itself. It's very slick. I like the design of the house as well. It's a good example of.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense though. Some of the stuff that happens, the couch falls into a pool. That's why would you put a couch there?
Why wouldn't there be a countermeasure against that?
I mean, it almost seems just far less convenient than just going outside to your pool. Why would you do that? But anyway, that's just animation, like you said. But it is silly.
But it leads
and they get away with the excuse of it belonged to an eccentric billionaire, so he can do because he's eccentric.
We get it leads into the whole following sequence of them getting used to their new position, because obviously Elastigirl sets off to begin her missions, or begin the mission profile for the campaign that they're kind of trying to start right now.
Sweet new motorcycle.
Yes, this is where that's mentioned and introduced.
Does it have a name? Do they call the Elasticycle?
The Elasticycle, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Which is not as good a name as the Incredibile, by the way, but it's still good.
That was genius. It went over my head. The fact that the Incredibile is just the word incredible. It's what? Whoa! That's ridiculous. But what a great pun.
Yeah.
These people, whoever came up with that, they were well paid, and at the same time, completely lazy. Very lazy.
Well, just incredible.
Yeah, but no. So I mean, well, we have this sort of kind of goes hand in hand.
We have two major sequences. We have Elastigirl doing her first superhero mission, then you have Bob struggling with the at-home life. Which one do you guys want to go through first? Because they go pretty much hand in hand in the film itself.
Let's go ahead and talk about the monorail first, and then we'll sum it up with Mr. Incredible afterward. I think that'll kind of leads into the other that way. The thing I love about the monorail sequence is, the animation's great. The fact that it takes place in sort of I like the time of day that it takes place, because you can see everything, and at the same time, it's not overly bright and cheery. It's I love the sleekness of just the technology, the way that the device itself, the vehicle itself, looks. And I love.
It's kind of like a scaled down version of the movie Metropolis. Has anyone seen that?
I've not. No.
Oh well, it's similar to it. That sort of pseudo style. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, I'll check it out. But I love the sound design in this scene, because like like I don't know, like just like we all edit our own little projects. I wouldn't call myself like an editor or like really like any professional margin, but I just love how accurate it and like the sound design is in this, because there's a part where when she's chasing after that thing and her sort of body like sort of loops around the train and like it slams like the rear tire into a window. I go, that is what it would sound like if the tire smacked into a window right now. It just sounds great. Like I love the sound treatment in that entire scene.
That
very
same
intense
moment
score,
stood out to me as well.
That sound treatment is great.
Yeah, that was the exact same moment stood out to me for that one as well. I was going to make the same mention. It's such a simple kind of split-second moment, but the fact that they put so much attention to detail in that one shot that was barely a second, it just screams the detail of Pixar that they're infamous for. And this entire scene kind of kept... We mentioned the action before at the start of the film, and that was a great snapshot introduction, kind of showing the kind of how far the bench mark had been raised again by them. But this one, to me, it was a different flavour. You know, you mentioned the word sleek. Everything about this, in terms of the storyboarding, the animation, the location design, it has that sleek feel. Like they've streamlined the kind of mandate of what they want to design a scene and a sequence about, and they go with that kind of one word thing. Just, okay, let's make this sleek. Let's have everything tied to that. And you feel that. I mean, obviously, I don't know whether they actually did that, consciously, but that's what it feels like to me. Each sequence has its own little shtick.
Like, it's such a stylish film, and like Elastigirl, she's very good at what she does, but she also like makes it look easy. Like she just without, at the same time you see that she's trying, like when we're in the moment, but like from afar, like you just see, oh, she's executing this with grace. Like she's got this down. Like she knows what she's doing, and you get that idea that in like the hierarchy of superheroes. Yeah, she would have been like one of the more valiant, experienced, and just generally competent. She's very damn good at what she does, and she makes it look good. Love it.
Professional is the word for her, I think. She seems like that agent type where she's she's thinking things through. She's we've seen it in the first film. The greatest scene when she's breaking into the base, the fact that she's thinking more than doing with that kind of approach. And the plane scene, she's very military in that when she's flying the jet. And you see that again here. They recapture that feel for her, and you can absolutely understand why she was the choice rather than Bob, who's a lot more freestyle, kind of fly by the seat of your pants type, with how he approaches things. Which, again, perfectly captured by both of them in this film.
And the other big thing in this scene, of course, is the reveal that we have a villain, because she gets a message from the screenslaver here.
Love the introduction.
Who was, he was mind controlling the conductor into going off.
Yeah, conductor, that's the word. I called it like an engineer. It's like, that's like not the right term. Yeah, the train conductor. That's right. Yeah. And which I think is a very ominous, cool way of introducing the villain, or just the presence of one, in that sort of quiet way.
Yeah, it's one of those moments that's been done before, but I like the fact that you use the word quiet because the entire scene, like the action of the moment, the music, everything stops when they go into that front room or the front cockpit of the
car.
Plane. Yeah, plane of the train.
Plane.
The music stops and we get the reaction. The music dials down.
Train.
And, focuses on the screen.
Yeah, it's like Brad Bird is like a guy that I think he tells stories like the way that he enjoyed hearing them as a kid, because he's like 60 years old. So like he has like sort of that sort of retro brain, and I love the way that he takes those older models of just like ways of doing things and adapting them for like the modern day. He's really good, like really great at that.
Especially given the whole Incredibles aesthetic style. The fact that it ties that into that so well is brilliant. It feels like this is right. This is how that would go down in this world.
Now, meanwhile, as this is going on, Bob is having troubles back home, like being the parent. But it's not necessarily for the reasons of like he sort of he comes to grips very quickly. Like
he's new to this.
I'm there. It's like It's not the fact that I have to parent. It's like I have to parent.
Yeah.
Like, he's not like
how do I do this?
Doing that. Yeah, it's like, okay, all right, they need help. How do I do it?
Yeah. He's not unwilling. He's just, he doesn't want to make the wrong choices at the wrong time, like a real parent would.
Yeah. Because he's obviously been the one who's gone out to work until this point. So he's not had the time doing... Obviously, he does engage with his children. We've seen that before in the previous film and by this point in the film, this one as well. But he's just not been the one who's been handling the kind of logistical stuff, the simple things that just fall into the background when you're not the person staying at home. So he has to learn that. And I like that he does so very quickly. We see the struggle and we see the strain, which is what caps off with this monorail sequence ending, actually, with his call to Elastigirl. But he's not taking to it like a fish out of he's a fish out of water basically with this one. But he's trying. He's not just he's not just begrudging it like, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'm just, and that's not in any way what's holding him back. It's purely the fact that he is new at this.
Yeah.
I mean, if he really was begrudging it in that way, it really would have made him seem unlikable.
And that's where I thought that they were going for like the first 5 minutes of this. I thought, oh, don't do that. Like, I'm not gonna like this. This is gonna be bad. But they're not doing it. Like that is not what happens, and it's made quickly, like early in the film. The key issues are Dash struggling with his homework, which is like like a topical point because they did, at least in the U.S., change the way that they teach children math.
Math is math.
Yeah. And so it's definitely something. You know that whoever wrote that just came in with whatever was bothering them that particular week at home. Like that was a very that mattered in whoever wrote that household. Violet, teenage girl having issues with her love life. That's just a perennial issue.
Understandably, considering her man doesn't remember who she is anymore.
Right. Which, does she realize that, or did he just like blow her off from her perspective?
I think at her perspective, she's just blowing off. Because she gets surprised by
there's the initial blow off, but then she finds out later.
She finds out about the reveal with the kitchen scene later. It's like, wait, what?
And worst of all, Jack won't go to sleep, and that's like the toughest nut to crack. So yeah, like Bob is sort of unraveling a little bit at home, and this sort of leads into the aftermath of the monorail sequence where Elastigirl, or Helen rather, calls Bob and tells her about her great day.
But before she does that, she asks about the kids as well, which I like. I like the fact that her focus is on the family and how everything's doing there.
That conversation.
Yeah. I like the fact that she focused on them first, asked her everything's okay, everything fine, everything, and then she gets to that point.
But the funny thing is, though, but the thing is, that's not why she called him. She
called him to brag about it.
Of course. She's like, I stopped betraying you. Like, she didn't care. Like she goes, how are the kids, honey? Okay, here's what I really want to talk about. Like that's very obvious.
Yeah, that's why I buy the fact that when he's just going, everything's fine. The fact that he's clearly not being necessarily fully honest over the phone. She is so easily able to accept that everything's fine. Okay, you've got it handled right. You've said you've got it handled. I'm in the clear. I stopped a monorail train. That was why I buy that moment.
It's not why she cares though. Like it's very clear. Like she called for that reason. She does have doubts, as is also the part of this scene.
Yeah,
it's the latter part of the scene. Is because when he starts revealing that things aren't going 100% right at home, that's when she's like back into mom mode. Like, oh wait, like can you not handle this? I knew I should have taken this job. I'm coming back home. It's like no, wait, you doubt me? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's when that's what gives him the kick in the pants to get back into sort of like, I can do this. I'm Mr. Incredible, So yeah, it is like she calls to brag about her day, and then casts doubt on his ability to, be the man of the house or whatever, and then that's what gets him back in gear. I like that it's his matter of like it's a point of pride for him. It's not, she didn't lecture him like, Bob, you have to do this, or Bob, blah blah blah. He was like, you don't think I can do this? Yeah. I can do this. I know. Like,
it's on now.
Yeah, and he doesn't immediately go to do it as well. He stews. He stews in his sleep, well, not in his sleep because he can't get to sleep, but in bed. Like it's ridiculously late at night or in the morning at this point, and he's just like, fine, and he works out and does it. He doesn't just go straight away. Everything about this breathes like reality. You don't just resolve to do something immediately. You do think about it, and the fact that he thinks about it lends so much more gravitas to the moment when he finally does, and he goes, right, Dash, get up. I think I've solved your maths problem.
Well, before that, you just see him figuring it out. And like that was when I go, oh, this movie's doing something not just right, but like extremely well. Like A+. They just got it.
Literally one of my favorite sequences in this entire film.
Oh, yeah. When he sits down and opens up the book and just in the middle of the night and starts working on it. Beautiful.
Yeah. That was when I knew.
Sheer, like, genuine honesty of that scene just really hits home really well.
That's A+
parenting. What they showed in that little sequence right there.
But yeah, the fact that
that was not intentional. Yeah. I swear that wasn't intentional.
This lends itself as well to the gravitas of what's going to come later as well. It's not just the service of this moment for his character. It's the family bonding that's bigged up later on. Without this, what comes later would just fall flat. So it's serving that purpose as well. But yeah, this is the solution for Dash's problem. He'll get to Violet later on. But he manages to get this homework done and sends him to work. And as well, again, it'll come up in a bit, but the fact that this isn't the end of that problem. This is This is a stepping stone.
That was at school. Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, not work. It's school. With the homework is what I meant to say. But the fact that this is only the first step, it's not just a case of, well, all homework issues are now solved. And I said, what? But I thought we caught up. That comes up later, which is it just adds more realism to it.
And intermingled with this is like, as much as he's trying though, like he's still like losing sleep because like this is wearing on him. And while he's napping, I think, is sort of when Jack has his moment that everyone will, that's like the moment that people will come out of the theater. Most people talking about the one where he fights
totally not
the squirrel.
Scrat. Yeah, totally not Scrat from us.
It's a raccoon. Yeah, it's a raccoon. Yeah. Who I think is probably going to get like the nickname of like Bandit or something like that because it's kind of cute how he like thinks that the raccoon, because of its mask, is a crook and he's stealing the garbage.
Yeah.
But this is when they reveal that Jack. Well, we already know that he has powers. This is like when they put a few that we've never seen on display, and the scene just goes on and on and on. And having seen it with like a room full of like at least American audience kids, it gets like a huge laugh.
Yeah.
It was definitely a success on that level.
Yeah, this is the moment that is specifically aimed for the young kids in the audience. And correct me if I'm wrong, he's got 17 powers, I think, now. Is that what the total adds up to?
That's what people have counted online. But they're not all displayed in this scene.
No,
of
course,
but a fair amount of them are.
He is ridiculous. He's going to be the Superman of his
he's the reason.
world.
He's the reason why, like, if you ever do a time jump, like a future episode or a future film of Incredibles, Jack has to be in league with the villain, because otherwise, what is the threat?
Or at least otherwise impaired.
Yeah, maybe his powers stabilize or something. But
like,
I would want him to be the villain.
He has to be, like, because otherwise he can turn into jelly. He can electrocute you. Like, he can like teleport. He can go into like a different dimension and at the same time be aware and be understood by those in ours. Like he can burst into flame. He can move things with his mind. Like he's immune to bodily harm. He just can't be touched. Like you can't have a threat to Jack unless he is the villain. But yeah, which, Brad Bird might go there one day. Who knows? I wouldn't put that beyond him.
I hope so. That would be so cool.
Certainly possible.
But and it's weird, like how like we don't have like an actual super villain in any of these movies. They're all like normal people. That like even I think the Underminer, who just looks like a weird mutant, he's like got like robot hands and like technology. He doesn't have like a power, from what I can tell.
Yeah. Again, like you said, if they make a third film, that is probably something they'd have to do to make sure the formula doesn't get stale.
To be a super,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But speaking of the villains, we then get the proper introduction to the screensaver after that sequence. Screenslaver. I keep saying saver. Oh my god, Screenslaver. Great villain name, by the way. Cheesy, but it works. I like it.
It's a great villain name, and Screensaver is a terrible superhero name.
Yes,
so don't say that again. I'm the Screensaver. No. We don't need you. We have those.
But
oh gosh,
the Screenslaver is reintroduced by way of the broadcast as Elastigirl is having the interview with the interviewer, who has a name. I can't remember off the top of my head though. But
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He's a
crazy design news anchor guy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because in theory she's a criminal at this point, right? And even in
she's at least
she's an outlaw
she's like sort
at the
of
very least.
Yeah.
So the fact that the perception from the public has shifted so much already that they can't outright just arrest her for what she's done it's a good nice kind of turning point for the plot.
That's the clout of the Devers. That's like showing them that explains why she keeps moving along with them, even though one of them is like, from the audience perspective, is obviously like the bad guy. At least it's like, okay, but Elastigirl's getting results, and that is in part only because like she brings her, she brings it, but they give her the platform for her to bring it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it would be completely irrelevant to the world at large. They wouldn't see this. That's the power of the Devers.
Yeah, and there's nothing for her to question at this point. She's not, had any ridiculous ham-fisted moments where the villains are going like, "Oh, I'm not the villain, honest," and she's ignored that. This is very believable. It's not diminished her as her agency in the film at all. It fits. And I like the introduction to the Screenslaver as well because he's not real, or it's really not the villain, if you know what I mean. The Screenslaver Monica is just a front. So the fact that you still feel the threat of that front's existence in the plot when you don't know that fact is very good for me. They didn't have to big this kind of entity up in the way they did, and they spent the time on it because it just, while it's relevant in this sequence, it's very impactful.
Yeah, I mean, we get this like little monologue as she's tracking him down about what his motives are and what he intends to do, and it is pretty, I wouldn't say chilling, but it's definitely makes you think, because a lot of what he says actually kind of can work.
Well, the tracking happens later. For this bit, is the ambassador thing, right?
Right.
The later scene, but that's a well executed scene where they give his motives, and it's to the point where I've heard like a number of people complain. Well, it's almost like just sort of wistfully like, I kind of wish that he was the villain, because like they bought him so thoroughly, like oh, he is a cool presence.
Just proves how effective he was.
And I can understand that desire, that to have them a slight disappointment that wasn't the case, but at the same time, it doesn't detract from the actual villain that we'll probably discuss when she appears, because it's still her message. This isn't something she doesn't believe. That is actually part of what she's her whole ethos.
She thoroughly believes it. Like the message is not hindered. It's just like the messenger is different from what you expect.
It's an additional point to the one she's actually trying to send. Latched on, so it still works on that level. But I do understand why some people who would prefer the more conventional, villain archetype, that they could be disappointed by that for this. And
he has a cool voice and like a decent character design. So yeah.
And again, it's a compliment to the film, if anything, because they made such a good job off this this facade that they were creating. So accidentally creating a great villain. The broadcast uses this time to announce, or Screenslaver uses this broadcast to announce the threat on the ambassador's life, and Elastigirl immediately springs into action, jumping to the rooftop, and we get a phenomenal action sequence. Just her going through the city in the very different ways she does throughout this film is some of the best parts of it for me. The amount they do with you've seen this before. This is a very simple action problem. Get someone out of a crashing chopper or choppers in is basically keeping them safe. This is not new ground. But what they do with the powers, with the framing of the shots, the actual animation of the vehicles themselves, it's so good. Just the execution is flawless.
Yeah, it's this movie doesn't like really reinvent the wheel, but we're not in like an era of reinvention though. Like every story has been told pretty much. You can only refine things. You know what I mean? And you can like retell the same thing, but you have like hopefully it's a very refined. But this is like the ultimate in like refined animated like action sequences that I've seen in recent years. I loved it. It was very like heart pounding and intense. But this, I think, might be my all-time favorite musical piece from either film. It is called Ambassador Ambush, in case you don't know. Just go look it up. It's on YouTube. Stream it wherever. Just listen to it. That score builds tension like nothing else in either of these films for me. And I could also... It's really well characterized because that in my like nerd brain, I go, I could see this being like the theme song for a Joker. Like if somebody's iteration of the Joker, that could be like a theme of him doing something throughout Gotham. And it's also very like sort of Gotham-esque, the way that they lit that scene in that one. It's sort of like that ambient light, that like at night. And it also doesn't make even sense. Like why would a helicopter be in that position where they're like literally hovering through that would never happen, but it's very thrilling and awesome. And the power of a villain to take over the mind of like a random pilot like that's pretty scary. Like she could have done like a lot more damage than she does in these.
It's a very good thing.
Well, hypnosis in general is like a power with a lot of implications. So it is pretty intimidating.
Yeah, and like I said, the sound treatment especially, just not just the music, but the like with the tire thing with the monorail earlier, that the blades as they spin, the explosions that go off. I mean, explosions a dime a dozen in every film ever, but they still stand out here.
When she first springs in there, one of the like sort of Secret Service agents takes a shot at her, like, because why wouldn't he? And like just the intensity of the gunshot is like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah, no, it's Elastigirl, stand down.
Yeah,
it's just real. Because they could have just been like,
they don't have like laser beams or like kid friendly. That's a gun. Like he was aiming for the head. You know what I mean? It's like, and she dodged it because Elastigirl, but still. And it probably, when I think about it, that bullet probably wouldn't kill Elastigirl, but still, like he went there.
I mean, you never know.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how much the elasticity of her skin would, work up.
It's hard to tell if she's like just passively that way or if she has to switch to on, so I'm not sure.
Difficult to tell. But yeah,
Even
brilliant
then, there's a
action
difference
scene.
between regular, rubber and bulletproof rubber.
True. But just the brilliantly well done action scene, but also the fact that it's setting up the ambassador as a presence in the film as well, because obviously she's not a main character, but she has to buy the superhero shtick. So the fact that she was saved here, it adds to that, both without undermining the villain's purpose, because that was by intent, but also for the superheroes in general.
And the cool thing is that it's sort of Palpatine-esque in that either outcome serves her purpose. If Elastigirl fails, you've been over-reliant on superheroes to save you from situations like this. If she succeeds, then it gives her clout for for me to like embarrass her on a grand world stage later on. Like once my plan really comes to fruition, the outcome doesn't matter. They both serve the villain's purposes, which I love situations like that.
Yeah, because that's how you play a scheming villain. A scheming villain. Otherwise, it just falls flat. Why would you be doing this? You need her for later, right? Yeah, so it works, thank God.
Evelyn's plot holds up on analysis. Like it really does. It's one of the most criticized things about the film, but it does hold up.
Absolutely. But yeah, we can jump back to Bob at this point. Bob back with the family, kind of the next round of his issues that he's having, getting them ready for school at this particular point, and we get the revelation of Violet.
Right.
Like, wait, what?
You said before how much you love this moment. With her just appearing behind the door.
Yeah, it's very simple because she can't turn her clothes invisible, obviously. So when she comes round and manages to sneak there with just her head invisible, it's kind of eerie how she can almost teleport there. So the humor of the moment is just like, poof, and her face and the expression. It was, I love that. It was very, very funny just to see the anger of her. Because she's not a particularly expressive character by and large. So when she gets this angry, it's just entertaining.
Something's up. Yeah.
And at this point, the anger stems from the fact not so much that the relationship is over, but she then like horribly, horribly embarrassed herself in front of the kid at school by going, didn't you like you forgot about it? Do I know you? Like that's the worst ever,
Yeah. And Mr. Incredible, Bob Parr at this point, his reaction as well is like, oh, sorry.
Whoops. Yeah, it's
Minefield.
What they did well here was like they gave enough. It was enough of a fuck up that we buy the teenage girl hysterics. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of on your side here, Violet. Even though like you're completely overreacting, I get it because this is such an extreme, embarrassment.
Worth noting as well, because we skimmed over it, and it was actually a moment I found really touching and nice and honest. Was earlier with the Violet, the date not turning up in the first place that triggered all of this. With Bob kind of encountering her by the door, and she's like, Violet, why are you still when she runs upstairs to the room and he goes to see if she's alright, and she says, if you want me to feel better, just go away. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll have to then. That entire sequence there was the perfect setup for this kind of crisis, because he cares, she understands he cares, but at the same time, when it comes to this reveal, you did what? It's very real. I like it. But so after that, we jump back over to Helen, who, or again at this point, Elastigirl. I need to get the alias and the names in the right situation, because she's Elastigirl at this point. Heads back to the Devers, because she has issue with the fact that Screenslaver has escaped. She saved the ambassador, but she didn't manage to capture him, so that's weighing on her mind. But they have that discussion, and that was a lot of very good points were raised in that moment. But it leads to the revelation of the fact that there are new supers. The benefits of what she's done. She's inspired a new generation, and we see that in all of the various characters that we're introduced to in this next scene. Some amusing choices.
These are not. By and large, these are pretty uninteresting characters, I suppose, and like they're one of the more criticized aspects of the film as well. Is like, did we need them, or if we did need them, could they have been more developed? I don't think that most of them needed to be, because they make a character out of Void. Maybe she could have used a bit more screen time, or just a little bit more development. I don't know that she needed more screen time, but still, I do like that they show. I call this the PR progress report part of the film, because I do like that there's enough going on for us to buy somebody as savvy as Helen having the wool pulled over her eyes, because she sees like the Devers are getting results out of her. So that's what justifies her staying with them. It's not like she's just blindly going through this for the business of the plot.
Yeah, and it's not her ego being massaged here. It's not like, oh, you're a fan, fans are adoring me. This is wonderful. It's not that. It's the fact that, oh, I'm actually doing some good. These people are good people, and they've been inspired by me. This is working. Mm-hmm. It's because they could have framed this very poorly if they'd started with the later scene with just the general audience cheering her. It works very well, and I agree that it's a mild. It is a mild. Not really a flaw, but it's something I would have changed about the film in giving these particular characters a little bit more to work with. Just something that made them a bit more than basic caricatures. Because aside from Void, they are laughably like one note in what they are.
I mean, the Crusher guy.
Yeah, and just the old guy who like just vomits fire or lava or whatever.
But the funny thing is, like, the Crusher guy is like the most relevant one to me, aside from Void. It's like I forget, like the guy, the one you're describing. I think his name is Reflex because acid reflux. Isn't that funny?
Acid, not lava.
Oops. I do like the Sonic Scream owl guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his name is, but he didn't have much to do. And there's like.
The electrical
like a lightning
guy as well, lightning. The fact that we can't remember them, it's a thing that I would have tweaked a bit because they could have done something a bit more with them.
I think,
but at the same time, it's not really a flaw.
Yeah, I think Void should have been developed more because she's the actual character in the movie. The other ones, as we'll get to, they're mainly there for a certain action sequence where they're the thugs. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm okay with them being ancillary characters. You only have so much. This is a 2-hour movie.
Oh yeah. They only have so much time to work with.
Yeah, it's like, but that's long. Like that's like the longest Pixar movie that I'm aware of, aside from maybe, for some reason, I think one of the Cars movies is like 2 hours. I can't believe that.
God,
but,
I hope not. I hope not.
It's definitely like up there. It's either the longest or one of the very longest Pixar movies to date. But even still, there's only so much time that you can allot to various things.
But that scene leads them into the evening party scenario, which is worthy of note because it has one of the greatest scenes in the entire film, which is funny because it's a mundane conversation, just sitting on a sofa.
I think that this is probably going to go down in history as one of the most underappreciated scenes in Pixar's history because so many people sort of toss the villain out of like this equation, like the villain sucks compared to Syndrome, this movie blows. Like that's a lot of people's takeaway that I've seen. This scene is so remarkably well characterized and animated, and what they're talking about, I think, is tremendously boring for like a 5-year-old. But anyone else, like like an adult watching this, I think it's very thought-provoking stuff. They're basically talking about publisher versus developer and like which is more important. You know what I mean? And the way that Evelyn, there's a specific moment she's like drinking wine and she kind of looks like an alcoholic. I don't know if you guys saw that.
The bags under her eyes,
there's like the bags under the eyes.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. I'm someone who struggled with the emotional trauma of her past for sure. But I think I know the moment you're about to mention where she goes to take a sip and then doesn't. Is that it?
Yeah, she's talking and like you do in a natural conversation. She'll go, well, you like, and she like sort of holds it away from her again, and it just, and she doesn't, like, it takes forever if she ever does actually take the drink. I love it's not mocap, okay, but it's as good as like that's like the first time I've seen something like that in such a mundane scene where it's like I'm fascinated by these people that are just sitting watching, like talking to each other on a sofa. Like, literally they're just sitting and talking. The animation is so stellar, and the lighting of it from like outside and so that sort of dusky sun outside. I just love the animation in the sequence, and the voice acting is great.
Of course, everything about it is just perfection, but they're so fully realized. These characters are basically alive at this point, even with the stylized, the fact that they don't look real. You don't care because everything about it, you're just breathing it in. You're buying what's being sold. The topic of conversation, the animation quality, the light ambient musical effects, the visual set design, everything is. This is something you could very easily wander over in a party and see in real life. You probably have done. You probably have seen people talking about something like this on a sofa in a party at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it
appearances
just
notwithstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like this is the reason, like this scenes like this are the reason why I found Coco so just mesmerizing, because it's such a beautifully done and layered piece of animation. But this scene is like that whole movie. Like it's just like, wow, that looks so cool. But yeah, I could geek out about this scene. I'll do a whole video about this.
Yes, we should do. Yeah.
Because we don't have time.
Because every shot is just perfection. And again, such a mundane
and it's
moment.
in this little moment where they come to the realization of how they could possibly track Screenslaver. And they
Yes,
even have a
yeah.
little. They have a quite literal, high five moment when they come to the revelation, which again adds to the realism. It's like, oh yeah, yeah. It's
And also
brilliant.
the realistic dialogue, like we'll promote the hell out of it. It's like they're not going like, well, gosh, son, we'll gee golly willikers. Like they're talking the way people actually talk, which
Yeah.
I love that. That's part of what I think made the first Incredibles film so great, and they continue that here. I can't get enough of this scene.
It also
It's like
helps.
the first thing I want to
sorry.
do when I get the scene. I know it's the first thing that I'm going to really like rewind and revisit when I get my actual copy of it on release. I love this sequence.
It's brilliant.
Amen.
It also helps sell the idea that these two could have been friends, because that's that point that comes up later. If it wasn't for our ideals and our philosophies, we could have been friends. And yeah, you can absolutely buy that, because this is not purely an act from Evelyn's side.
No, it's not. There's even been the suggestion from people who think I don't buy into this really, but I can see like the groundwork for it a little bit. That maybe she's lesbian and like likes Helen.
Yeah,
which who
could
wouldn't,
do, yeah.
'cause, but I mean, but still,
know.
it is like I don't think that's not like my headcanon version of it or anything, but I can see that's possible at least.
Yeah, I can buy into that if they wanted to take that route. But this kind of the conclusion of that conversation happens, and we get the step forward of the tracking being prepared by them. But we jump back to Bob, who is
Oh no!
his
attempt number
to-
2. Yeah. I mean, he handled the homework right, guys. This should be easy. He had no problem. I love how
What was
naive
he
he
thinking?
is. Precisely. When he's on the phone, he's like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. This will work. And it's like,
Yes.
no.
So
Anybody
what he
watching
did-
this movie and who's planning to have kids, take note. This is the math thing is a do. This scene is a don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
if you already have
ridiculous.
kids, that means you've already made the step to get into bed somewhere. So presumably you already know that this is horrific planning. Like, do not do this. But so he calls in like his one favor from like Dicker, who's retired now, right? Or just
Yeah.
been chucked out of the government. So I need you to look up this Tony Reidinger guy. Like, give me the dirt. Give me the scoop. And he finds out that his family owns like a diner like somewhere in town, right? And hilarity ensues. Like what? Like, who wants to take
Hilarity
it?
for some people,
poor
hilarity for
Violet.
Dash.
Yeah, poor Violet. And I mean, obviously, you didn't have anywhere else to put him, but don't take Dash if you plan to do this. Have him wait in the
don't
car.
do that, yeah. Well, the great thing is, like as you mentioned, he's hilariously naive and doesn't realize like what a dork he's being. And Dash obviously is going to contribute in whatever way he can to make this like already crashing and burning thing just plummet at like an ever increasing rate. Like he knows exactly what he's doing.
But the moment where Violet realizes it and she's got the water and just the snapshot of her just spewing everywhere, the fact that they it's brilliant.
Yeah, that got like
It's
the
a
biggest
Looney
laugh
Tunes
in the theater.
moment.
Yeah.
It's
it
because
looked-
her eyes
yeah.
actually pop out
like,
for
what?
a second.
Her nose, I'm positive her nose gets bigger. She looks like Yosemite Sam in that particular like cutaway. It doesn't just like dribble out; it like rockets out of her nose. But yeah, that scene, it definitely got the biggest laugh. Like the first time I saw that in the theater. I've seen it twice, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Meanwhile, Tony's just like, what?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I love that
It
scene.
even adds more layers to it when you consider the fact that she, on top of being embarrassed, she also has to put effort into not accidentally turning invisible.
Yes.
Because that happens when she
Yes.
gets nervous.
Thank you for mentioning that.
So
That was the other thing.
just,
I was sat there in the cinema.
The sheer turmoil that must be going on in her head right now. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my lord.
Oh yeah, I was sat in the cinema and thought, oh god, that must be horrific for someone like that, because that's the moment when everyone wants to just sink into the floor or turn invisible, and she can actually do that, but she just can't because that's big no-no at the moment.
That's the problem. Yeah. I have his
Yeah.
mind wiped again.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So thank you, Bob, for that. That was great. Good work.
Yeah, good job.
So we cut back to Elastigirl, who's putting her plans to track Screenslaver into effect. We get this really funny sequence where she's talking to a news anchor like over the phone. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I couldn't be there tonight." It's like, "Okay, where are you right now?" "Oh, I'm
Around.
What did she say exactly? Did she say, "Yeah, I'm around," and then it cuts to her being on top of the actual newscast building trying to track Screenslaver's signal, which she does end up doing. And then we kind of get a sequence where I guess you could say he's kind of broadcasting his quote-unquote false message in terms of what his motivation. 'Cause we know it's not really his motivations, but we know it's... For me, it's like, even though we find out later that this is all just a front, I still feel like what he's saying is still
relevant.
topical and can
Let's
be
say
relevant.
Yeah, you buy
Let's say
into it
that,
even though it is just a falsehood, or at least a secondary thing.
Yeah, like
the
some people have
Patsy-
said that, like, that the twist later of him not being the main villain kind of demeans this sequence. I really don't think it does.
I agree.
Yeah,
fact-
it's like he's the patsy, but the message is the villain's message that remains.
I mean,
through the end of this.
that was Evelyn, recording that, so obviously she has to mean it.
Yeah. And apart from anything else, it's the backdrop as well. It's not the sole focus. We're not stood there just watching a screen. As is, apart from the fact that you're actually watching the film, you're not watching a screen within the screen. You're watching, Evelyn. You're watching Helen.
I've
done it again. You're watching Elastigirl. Jesus, man. You're watching Elastigirl.
And then Evelyn, and then you said Elastigirl.
Yeah, no, the fact that I keep saying the aliases for when they're not in alias mode, and I keep saying the names for when they're in alias mode. I'm an idiot. Let's put it that way. But yeah, we see the reason it works so well is because it's a backdrop. We're seeing Elastigirl going through the city at this point when she's doing the extremely creative different uses of her power. Like we said it before in the first film.
Stupid power, this stretchy ability is like the most like
amazing power,
super power like on paper, and she makes it amazing. I would totally have that power, like in light of like the inspiration that she is for that.
Precisely.
Just saying, if we ever get another Fantastic Four movie, they should watch this.
This is the bar. This is the bar.
It's like the running joke that these films are the best Fantastic Four movies, right? Yeah. But I mean, which they're not wrong. But yeah, I love the way that it's lit too, like because when she's like gliding, like she basically can fly, like she could turn herself into a kite and just like fly across town. Like that's ridiculous. Like I mean, it's ridiculously awesome.
Asylum away across town.
Yeah. And the lighting of it again, it's did anyone ever see that film? I've never actually seen it, but I remember the trailer. It's called 9. It was like starring like Elijah Wood as like a robot thing. It was like
I did not.
Yeah, it's like a little sack robot. It was
it's like
a long time ago.
I've never seen that film, but I love the lighting in the trailer. I want to see it because of the visual aesthetic, and this reminded me of that. I really enjoyed the way that just the lighting in this entire movie is amazing. But I love
the music again for the sequence.
Yes,
it's a hugely good tension builder because it's the backdrop to the backdrop of the villain's spiel. So the fact that it works, the rhythm of it, the cadence as she's moving around, the swaying of the kite form. It's just brilliant. Everything ties together so nicely, and it's all this is the lead up to her getting to the villain's hideout. This could have been just a cut, and they didn't. They spent time on it.
And aside from the fact that it's grounded in that sort of 60s interpretation of like America, where like everyone's like glued to like a television set and not really bonding, you could just insert that for social media or cell phone or whatever the current idea of that is. I really do think that Brad Bird is a writer who like looks around him at like what he finds contemptible and draws on that like when he comes up with these things. I think that he puts himself into some of like the antagonists, which is why they come off like they have a valid point. They're not completely baseless, or way off in like La La Land for villains, like where they're just on Mars. They're grounded in reality because I think it comes from like a real frustration. That he actually feels.
Definitely. And at the same time, he's not preaching. This isn't like he's hitting you over the head with a message. You should think this, you should think this. Because he's doing it through the lens of the villain, it's the opposing viewpoint. So it's something for you to, it's thought provocation. It's food for thought for you to take in and think, actually, they have a point. Lending power to both the villain and also to the thinking processes of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
While also giving a good foil to for the heroes, because they're right. Everyone's right in some ways, but the heroes are the people who are more right in this film.
Yeah, the heroes are. The heroes are the ones that are more right, but it's always like when you have like a quote unquote good villain, it's usually one that has like a
point.
A point, yeah. And like the actual confrontation itself is like really intense.
Oh yeah,
like that's. It's been mentioned by many people, and I thoroughly agree with this, that it is like a comic book brought to life. Like every panel of what's going on there, like where he'll find anything, and like he like shuts on the actual, just sort of mental fuck box or whatever that it is. She's like,
that's a description for it.
It's like
the hypno room.
Yeah, the Hypno Room. There you go.
Just
That's
what we must have taken
such
to
a Silver
animate
Age
that.
title for it too. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
for sure.
Yeah.
But what we must have taken
Feel
to
the
animate
wrath
that.
of my Hypno Room.
More than anything else in this film, this is the Pixar kind of mantra again. Oh, we can't do that because it'd be too difficult. All right, let's work out how we can do it and make it as difficult for ourselves as possible. Like, they did not mean to do this effect that would have made just life hell on themselves, and they did, and I love them for it.
I can only imagine.
It's so ridiculously like dynamic and intense, and it's scary because like he's winning, like at least at the start. Like, and she's like, I love that she's not all, oh, my weakness, electricity. Like she's just like, oh, that's what her weakness is. Okay, like anybody who's been like wondering, that's one of them. You know, it's like it makes her too pliant or like whatever. Like she doesn't have like the
she
she's
loses
like
her
too
nerve
elastic.
control basically. Yeah, it just kind of flops around and she loses her precise maneuverability. And yeah, it's a perfect example of a light introduction weakness being introduced without the film focusing on it and just shoving it down your throats. She recognizes it. Oh, okay, bad. Don't want that. And we immediately understand the tension of why she now has to dodge.
Yeah. And this is a point where it's like I do want to center on I do want to touch base on the fact that she's a woman. He's fighting to kill her. Like he's punching her, he's kicking her, he's throwing her around. At one point, tries to put an axe through her head. I mean, and you know, the fact that she's a woman, I love that they didn't pull the punches on this. Like she's treated the same way as like a male superhero would have been in this situation where somebody's trying to kill you.
I love that. Yeah, it's brilliant. And just the dynamic shooting. I mean, we mentioned the animation in the background of the nylon kind of bright light effect that's strobing across the screen every second. But the actual way they choreograph the fight, they pair it with the kind of jump cuts between the shots really well. The lighting, the animation, the choreography,
accentuated by the music as well.
Yes, yeah, and tying again into that piece that's now hit its climax after the kind of kite sequence, or transitioned into more of a climactic one. I can't remember if it's the same soundtrack or not, or the same track rather. But either way, it holds together brilliantly. Ultimately culminating in her victory because she defeats him, even though it is a tough fight. Again, going back to that whole subverting your expectation, he runs out of the room. He sets the self-destruct on the room, and he's just trying to cover up his tracks. But he could also be trying to set up the whole superheroes failing thing again, because he's running and there are civilians in the building.
I mean, at that moment, again, like I think I consider this a triumph of the film that I'm taking it seriously enough to think this. I thought, is that building about to blow up while she's pursuing him, and he's going to make her look stupid in front of everyone? Because that would mean entailing killing people, which it's not ultimately what happens. And a part of me kind of wishes that it had gone there, but that would have been a different plot, because then it's okay. Elastigirl really fucked up, and the world has just watched her do it. I'm not saying that wouldn't work. That could totally work, but it would really make the whole second act or third act different. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not saying that would have been better. It could have gone there, and I was buying it that it could go there. But it's not what ultimately happens. She does apprehend him. And if you were paying attention, which you may not have been, or you may just not have noticed this, if you're paying close attention, you notice that the Pizza Planet truck is parked outside that building.
I did not notice that on first viewing, actually. After you guys mentioned it, after we got out of the theater, I was like, what? I had to go look it up, and I found it still. I was like, oh, yeah, there it is.
It's very cool. I like how they always show these things, but they never, break the fourth wall by forcing it into your line of sight. It's there if you want to look for it, but it's not, the center of the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time they did that was in Toy Story 2 when they actually drive the freaking thing.
Right. In this, it is like arguably it is directly part of the plot because the pizza guy is the patsy. But it's normally just like one of their cameo things or Easter eggs that they call them. That they sprinkle that one into every film. The Pizza Planet truck, I think, is in every film somewhere.
And the ball.
The Luxo ball, I think it's called. But I didn't find that in this one, but I'm sure it was somewhere. Maybe it was at the party. Maybe it was one of Jack's toys.
Small deals here when he was running out as well. I like the fact that he springs the fire alarm. Now that could be for one or both reasons here. That could have been because he wanted to slow Elastigirl down behind him, or her, I guess, because he's being controlled by Evelyn. Or it could be because he wanted to make sure they didn't get killed in the explosion. I like that it could be either or for those, or both even. I mean, it probably is both.
Yeah, it's I like that Evelyn, she's willing to kill people to make her point, or she has to in some way, like when she's trying to set the supers up for failure, but she's not in it to cause needless damage. And it's not because of insurance. She's not gone wild with the whole I'm a villainous thing. She's human. I like her as a villain. I may as well just say that. I'm not saying I prefer her to Syndrome, but there are things about her that I think are more advanced ideas for sure.
Completely agree.
Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
Syndrome's got charisma to last for days. You know, he's the most charismatic of the
and he's a personal villain for Mr. Incredible. You know,
he's a personal villain.
He's connected to her, but and she's not, and I can understand that as not being a preference for people. But it's not a criticism of the film that stands up because she addresses it herself. You know, she says later on, we'll get to the scene in details in a minute, but she addresses that in the film, and it wasn't the point of her. They understood when they wrote this character that it wasn't supposed to be this personally tied villain. That's why the twist is irrelevant, because it's not about that. You know. It works.
I mean, and some of the best villains in history, as far as fiction goes, are ones that aren't directly tied to the main hero's origins or past life or anything like that.
Yeah, completely agree. So they don't have to be intricately tied to that person's lives to be a proper threat.
Joker, Darkseid, even Lex Luthor to a degree, depending on which origin you go with. Sorry.
Right. Joker. Syndrome. See how I conflated the two?
Sorry.
Syndrome worked incredibly well in that vein for Mr. Incredible, but that doesn't mean that every villain henceforth needs to be that. I completely agree.
It would have been worse, in my opinion. It's nice that they had this, where they went this personal approach, especially considering again we're going for an external threat on the family. This isn't an internal issue anymore. This is a outside force that's built around the fact that they're trying to shape the world, not themselves. So it fits the narrative.
Yeah, that might even have been a criticism too, if it was, because people were like, another personal villain,
Yeah, I was gonna say, considering how close this is to what Syndrome just did, it's like what now, like Miss Incredible. Now Elastigirl's like personal villain just comes out of the woodwork, just like that. Like that's really convenient. So I love that she's not, a personal villain in that way. But so now at this point, where are we? We're back to like Bob, and he's been trying, but
or he's trying to really wear him down,
rather. And he's been sort of pushed over the edge by the realization that the Incredible was auctioned off to some douche with like a lot of money, apparently. This is just all building up, and Jack's powers, right? They've been made known to everyone because Bob is too tired to keep up with him, basically. And so the siblings sort of accidentally discover. I love the way that this happens too. Yeah. Like he's like launched into like Violet's room and like turns into his demon baby self, and she comes out like, "What is that? Oh, it's just your brother."
Yeah. We should call Lucius. And immediately it's like, we should call Lucius. And it's like, no.
We need help.
It's I love the fact that that's how he was reintroduced to the story as well. They had a very limited amount of options for how they wanted to bring him in without it feeling ham-fisted and just thrown in there. This works, I think. They couldn't call the mother, so they called backup.
Lucius is like fan service done well because he was a very popular character from the first one, and he is arguably only here again because he was a popular character. We need to bring him back, or we feel we should. But I like him. I just genuinely like him. He does seem like a very real family friend and like somebody that they can count on. And he's like there like whenever they need him, and that's cool because he's like
sold
treated
especially
as
by the
equal.
Sold especially, and a family member as well from day one.
Yeah,
but sold especially by the fact at the start of this film he says, the offer's still open. You can come live with us, anytime.
Right.
That really helps sell that immediately if you don't, if you haven't seen the first film for whatever reason.
I almost want that to be like a short. Like they should do like, here's why this wouldn't work out.
Yeah,
like you need
that was before I knew about Jack.
Imagine how his wife would have reacted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I still that's my one thing. I did say like in our last one, what if they turned her into a super? Like is she a super? And then like
I would love that was the case.
I still kind of want to meet her, but that didn't happen.
Yeah. We still don't know what she looks like.
I didn't realize that her name is Honey too. I just thought he called her Honey, but like that's her name.
I didn't know that either. Yeah. That's cool.
Elastigirl makes mention of like, and if Honey ever needs blah blah blah, just have her call me. So it's like she that was her name. You know what I mean?
I thought about that.
Yeah, but anyway, and I also like that. I don't know. I think it's this moment, but like when Lucius realizes that Jack what he can do it literally cuts in him going, "What the?" So it was like it was like another example of Sam Jackson like saying "fucker" like or it was something like in the movie, but it was cut away. Like, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, and
like even in a Pixar movie, he gets away with it.
It never gets old. But the whole scene basically culminates with them ending with he's just sitting there exhausted with Bob, and he's like, "Well, what do we do about this?" And he's like, "Oh, you want another? Here, have an ice ball." I love the effect of that. It's very simple.
Yeah, when he made the little ice
sphere. It's very cool. But this is the part of the film everyone's been waiting for. Enter Edna Mode.
You need some professional help. Yeah. Or you need like an expert help. Yeah.
Yeah. You need a seamstress.
Favorite superhero fashion designer.
I love this how they. I mean, we said about Frozen.
Just nails her so well.
Oh yeah, without question.
She's such a hilarious character. I mean, just this he could literally just make a series of shorts of her just doing random things. Like Edna orders. Edna goes to get her mail. Like she could be a Looney Tune. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm interested in like Edna's daily routine.
Yeah, and the fact that she, like we said with Frozone, she's introduced for a very believable reason. She's not just ham-fisted in because fan service. You know, it makes sense that they would go to her for any kind of help with the superhero problems.
It does. Her job was to design costumes to suit the powers of the various people she designed for. It's like she has the facility to basically just have like a laboratory where she observes baby super freak, like as Lucia's called
that demon
what his powers are. Baby, yeah. And just figure a way that you can corral this thing, because he can literally like transport between dimensions, and that's like one of his many powers. He has 16 other ones that we know of. So you need some help.
She has no interest in the idea until she finds out about the powers, and it's like, oh
my God. like, yes, I've been dreaming of this. Of course, you can leave me. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
And then we get the return. We'll come back to that in a bit, but we get the return from Bob to the house, completely exhausted. And one of the most touching scenes in the film for me, his interaction with Violet, where he's just kind of tired. I'm sorry, dear. I'm trying my best, and I was only trying to help, and I just don't know what to do, and I'm not. And just basically having this honest, earnest, heartfelt moment with his daughter, who then is very clearly appreciative because he's trying. He's a great dad. He's struggling. Yeah. Completely by that, but he is a great dad, and for this moment alone, almost.
I think it mirrors well with her scene from the previous one, where she was trying to give like an apology for like screwing up or not being like, because she she didn't have the headspace, and like so now it's like somebody's apologizing to her for like they were trying, but just I don't have the right headspace. I'm not equipped for this. I don't know how to deal with this, but I'm trying, and like she gets it. So I think it's a really nice cap on that.
As well, we haven't had an interaction really between these two from the first one.
That's true.
Apart from the end when he talked about the headband, it was more about Helen and Violet. So having that here is nice to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think she was the one. She was the one apologizing to Helen for like Mom, I'm sorry, I froze. Oh, it was too much for me to expect from you. Your first time out, don't worry about it. So it is nice that she gets that bit with Bob. I really like that. It's a very strong relationship between these two in this one.
Even despite
that's why I don't regret
at the end.
It's cheesy, but I'm okay with it. It's like but that's the reason why I'm totally fine with him not being like front and center, like fighting the villains. Like I'm fine with his story at home. I'm interested in it. I'm not like settling for that. I don't feel like I settled for a story where he's like stay-at-home dad. It's like I'm happy to take
experience
that in and think about it. Yeah.
I'm arguably more invested in that than I am the villain plot, to be honest. I love that kind of thing in stories, just the emotional, you're diving into the characters of the non-aliases, just who they are as people outside of their role. I've always loved that in stories, and this is done very well. It's like my tolerance for cheese is just very low. I am very sensitive to that, and it becomes cringy almost immediately for me. The fact that didn't do it for me, and the fact that the moment sold on that power alone was well, okay, that says something about that. I wasn't cringing through this. So yeah, big tick on the box from me.
Mm-hmm. I think you have like a different barometer for like what it makes cheese though, because like I'm trying to watch My Hero Academia. Okay. That's some kind of funny,
is extremely cheesy, but
but you love it though, and so I'm just saying it's like
anime is separate. You have to split certain things from it. But anyway, well, that's a whole other conversation. We'll see where that goes sometime.
Okay.
That's
so after that, we cut back to Helen at a party where she at first is just getting honored for her acts during fighting Screenslaver, but then we learn we get our big twist, that we kind of already spoiled. We've already spoiled pretty hard, but yeah.
I have to say that I figured it out as soon as she pulled the mask off and the guy was confused to go, okay, it's in the goggles.
Yeah.
It's all right. Yep. But at the same time, my brain didn't immediately go to, oh, she's going to get enslaved. So it's like, that was a nice, I like that. Because especially after we see that how competent she is with her abilities, you don't want that fighting against you.
No.
Like that's a dangerous weapon. So although yes, we, like pretty much everyone else, figured out that evil Endeavor is the villain. Like kudos to all of us guys. I didn't actually. I liked the moment where like she slapped it in front of her face. It was like, oh, okay, I got you into my pocket. You figured me out, but I still got you. Like I liked that. I thought that was a well done moment.
The fact that it was so immediate as well, it was just, and goggles on. There wasn't any preamble or a fight between them or a big slow reveal. It was just snapshot, done. It had to be that because she knows what she's facing here.
Yeah, but what I actually like is like it's not just after she gets slapped with it after she figures it out, but that isn't the first time we see her in that room. In fact, Ellen even calls her to come in and be like, "Hey, look what I found! This," and then that's when the surprise comes. So I don't, because doing it, I think the other way would have been a bit too cliche. I mean, that would have been too much like old school superhero. Oh, it was me! Like you never saw me in the room.
No, it has to be this way.
I mean, I know it's a little thing to like praise, but I like that they did that.
Yeah,
no, I
completely agree.
Especially because it's clearly not a moment that Evelyn planned for exactly, so she improvised her way into that. So it's like that wasn't something that was that was her seeing my plan's about to get foiled. Better stop before that actually happens. I like that.
It was a reactionary thing rather than part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take agency away from Elastigirl and her reveal and her moment of awareness. It's not like, this was always destined to happen. Haha, you failed. No, it's just, oh god, you're too good. Glasses on.
And then after this moment is when we cut back to Bob, who is learning the ways of Jack from Master.
I love that Jack is mimicking Edna walking down the corridor. Yeah. I turned to you in the cinema and I was like, "Did you see it?" And he's like, "Yeah." It's just
it's hilarious. Like. And also the idea that after he develops enough to have the power of speech, which would be his 18th power that we all share, he could literally just be there could be two Ednas in the world, which is both amazing and terrifying.
Edna with all of the superpowers under the sun. That would be brilliant.
Actually, he can multiply. There could be infinite Ednas. That'd be ridiculous.
But just it's a rehash of the first film scene when they're going through the powers of the suit, right? It's we've seen it before, but it's a new flavor. And it's like, yes, darling, don't worry, it'll be quite all right. It walks into the room, and
like, what are you doing?
It's not old. It never gets old.
No.
We have found that any scenario involving the cookies will result in the demon baby.
I love that, like when she goes like, "As I found out to my horror last night," or something like that. Like she just the idea that she was dealing with something that was outside of her comfort zone. I kind of want to see that.
Brilliant.
But
fortunately, we have developed countermeasures to this, and just press the button. It's just I love the idea as well, the tech behind it.
Yeah, so she gives them like a suit that comes with a remote that allows them to keep Jack sort of in check, or at least respond to just the crazy that he can bust out at any moment, which is like the only thing that makes him remotely, possible to handle at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we, she even designates him as a, polymorphic, which is having many forms on, which does make me wonder, like, has this ever occurred before in the superhero community for this world? I'm just curious, or if Jack's completely one of a kind.
She mentioned that there are. He didn't set the precedent for supers having more than one ability. I mean, to be fair, I would say that even Violet has more than one. Yeah, but one with this many.
Yeah.
She seemed to think this is something else. Like just her reaction to him is like, whoa, So I think this is highly unusual.
God, it's brilliant.
Yeah. And we should probably point out that the movie never does actually fully explain why he is the way he is. It just is.
It doesn't need to.
Jack.
Just Jack.
Yeah,
because Jack. I like that as well. It doesn't need to dive into his backstory.
I watched an interview where Brad Bird gave like his just his rationale for them having their abilities like was just it's at once I think perfect, and at the same time very surface level thought was put into it. It's like very simple, but at the same time it makes perfect sense. It's just like, well, men are like sort of expected to be strong and like the provider and the ones to go out and like face off, bravery and provide and sort of be the stability. Moms are pulled in all these different directions, so I made her elastic. Dash is like this but just this
All of
pent up
energy.
energy.
Yeah.
Like any 10-year-old boy, and teenagers, they're sort of standoffish and they sort of they're very distant. So I gave her force fields and made her invisible, and so I mean it makes, and babies, or they could have nothing or they could have everything. Who knows what that is? Like it's untapped. Yeah. So I mean it's like his rationale is like it's perfect. So of course Jack is like this. And again, if you give that consciousness, it's going to be like the most horrifying villain ever. Like no one can have that kind of power.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But this then transitions after that to before we leave the scene, we get Edna calling herself Aunt Edna as well. It's like, all of this I want for all of perpetuity across the universe, but babysitting this one I do for free. It's just that you see that she's so attached to Jack Decker after this one night. It's brilliant. But
we also get and ensure that I forget what the line was, but that ensures that she's the only provider of suits for them, because when Bob mentions that Elastic Girl got Yeah, there you go.
Forever. It's brilliant. Yeah, I love that.
She feels snubbed that she got a new suit.
Yeah, it's even the first thing when we first see her is in the little screen is like Elastigirl's suit is made by Giovanni or whatever his name was.
Yeah, whoever.
Love it. But yeah, we get the transition, of course, into the evil monologue, which actually makes sense because she's not just spewing "Aha, I'm evil." She's actually explaining herself for Elastigirl.
Now you can.
Well, she is doing that. But,
it makes sense. It can be overdone, and it fits it.
I'll take this criticism that she's just monologuing. She is, but Syndrome did too. I'm just saying.
You sly dog. You got me monologuing.
Yeah, these movies embrace these tropes, so I don't think of it as a problem. It's not. It's sort of like it would be like complaining about Dr. Evil and Austin Powers. It's like they're kind of playing along with the joke. You know what I mean? So it's like, why knock them for that? But she is very much monologuing. Having said that, what she has to say, even after the movie's conclusion, she's not wrong. Like, she's right. Like she has a point.
We mentioned the impersonal thing before. This is why I buy that, the whole idea of her not having anything to do with Elastigirl. I was like, I trusted you. It's like, why did you do that? Why would you trust me? We've just met. You don't know me.
Like, we just met. You trust me because my brother knows your theme songs? Because I built you a bike?
Yeah.
Why?
It's the contempt she feels for that idea and that mentality, and I love how that's attached to the to her original origin story, and the fact that that's what got her father killed. It's that kind of stupidity that got my father and my mother as after the fact killed. I love that it's just attached to that. It's why this monologue works, even though she's an impersonal villain. Why it works on a personal level. The quasi betrayal that Elastigirl feels at this moment, the disdain for that by Evelyn, and also the fact that what her feeling like she's betrayed is attached to her own personal origin. I love it.
It crippled her ability to really trust anybody, and at the same time, it doesn't make her inhuman. And a lot of people have misinterpreted this. Evan hates supers because supers failed to stop her father from dying. No, she doesn't hate the supers. She hates people's over reliance on trust, like in them. Like that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to get them banned forever. She is not trying to. She does not personally hate the heroes. It's not really a subtle point. I think the movie does a good job of outlining this very well.
Completely agree.
But I'm just saying this because there's people who are using this to criticize the film. That is not her motivation.
Completely agree. Apart from anything else, she likes Elastigirl. She says here, we could have been friends. I love the line when she says, if it wasn't for our different ideologies, we could have been friends. It's like, well, I have an ideology. You just seem to be this bitter, broken thing. Not said as bluntly, but it's really well delivered.
And I also like that this is like jumping ahead a little bit, but you do get the sense that Evelyn does care about Winston. She's not like a heartless person. Like she saves him at the end only because he's her brother and she doesn't want him to die. I really like this concept. I would have given Winston a little bit more to do here, but I really like the concept of a shared origin story for siblings. Like, because that's not really done very much. Like, it's like the same thing that happened to Batman pretty much, but like Batman didn't have like a sibling. But it's like, what would that happen? Like, what would happen if like he had a brother or a sister who also witnessed the same thing?
Yeah,
and they go in like different trajectories. I like that idea of like like a dual origin story. And the thing about her ability, like, well, it's not a super ability, it's technology. But what she does in trying to get people to double down and and think about things for themselves, to get them to that point, she's robbing them of their free will with her hypnosis. I would have wanted Winston to point that out to her and go like, look what you're doing. Because villains don't need to be right. Okay, like that's what makes them villains ultimately. Like it's like a common thing in like a critical circle to be like your motive doesn't make sense because you're like a hypocrite. She's a villain. She's supposed to be a hypocrite. What I would have wanted was for Winston to point that out to her. Like you're still part of the problem. And like for her to be like left thinking about that, I think would have been a powerful send off for his character to have that. That's the one thing I would have added for Winston.
I completely agree with that. The fact that she's the one who's supplying all of the tech in the first place. Her family and herself and being the person. I mean, obviously it's Winston who's actually selling the tech, but she's the one building it in the first place. So her hatred for social media or the equivalent of that in that era, and people's reliance on tech and everything that makes things easy for them, she's part of that problem as well. So there's a whole kind of cycle of self-contempt here that she's not really grasping. You get the sense that while she's well put together as a person, she's hanging by that subtle background thread. That's why I believe the alcoholic thing. There's a human part to her that I think would be like an interesting character if they were like forced to come to grips with that realization. And I think that he's, as somebody who shares her origin story, the one best poised to say, look, like think about this for a second. I would have given that to him, but that's the only thing I would have added. Like, that would have made me buy him more as like a complete character. He's not really for me in this, like ultimately, but he's almost there. There's definitely the seeds for both characters to be something really even more interesting than what's already there. And I am interested in this. I just would have refined it a little bit in that way. Yeah, completely agree. Even her final line in the film, which we'll get to later, the almost desperation in trying to get that point across speaks towards her human core. The fact that she is grasping despite all of her successes. I really like that. She is a really good character and a really good villain as well. I don't buy anyone saying otherwise, personally.
So strange. I don't know why they would either. But we also get a nice little detail here in the acknowledgement of how she restrains Elastigirl by freezing her.
Yes, I meant to mention that. Thank you. Another one. This one again has been done before. It's actually been done in Fantastic Four. But
it's the very first Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, it's a good way of
I
know what you mean. God, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the fact that it's not hammered in. It's just okay. Of course, this works. This is a freezing problem, but also it sets up something that happens in the climax, which we'll get to later. This is a really good moment for establishing tension later on.
It makes sense why this and electricity would be so deadly to her.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's cool that there are supers in this universe who could be checks for her, like one of them being one of her friends in Frozone.
Which is where it comes up later. I love that moment, but we'll get to it when we get to it. What comes next after this one?
This is sort of like
to
Bob is
the
teaching
family.
the kids how to use Jack, basically.
Oh, yeah. Dash pushes buttons. Another example of it.
Right.
Literally all he does in this film is push buttons. On the ship, in the house, with the Incredible, which we haven't mentioned. The Incredible comes up. He's just pushing buttons of that. It's another thing that kind of calls Bob back to his glory days a bit.
I mean, we mentioned it. It just wasn't a big scene.
Yeah. The only real thing that is worth mentioning is the fact that he says, no, leave it. I don't want to cause problems. I'm trying to put a best foot forward, as it were. So it's just more of that, more of him pressing buttons with Jack this time.
Not long after this, like with a
tells
facade.
Bob to come down. Yeah.
Yeah. Like she's like, hey, there's something wrong. I need your help. Or like Elastigirl needs your help and blah, blah, blah. And report to DevTech immediately. And as Bob's leaving, he has like the foresight to get Lucius involved. Like hey, watch the kids while I'm gone, please. And so there's like a brief moment where like no adult is there to help the kids.
Yeah, and because of that, this is when Lucius comes back into the film again. You buy it. He's not just randomly turning up for the hell of it. He's actually, of course he was supposed to be on the way. He's like, oh, that's interesting because they called, he called me to get them here. Meanwhile, he goes to answer the call to assist whatever's wrong with Elastigirl and that situation. Arrives, pitch black room. He's probably thinking, "Where have I seen this before?" Because this is never a good sign. But at the same time, Elastigirl's there, acting as Helen really in this moment, saying, "Oh hey, hi," effectively, and then proceeds to clobber him.
Sorta.
I love his later on in the film. I love his reaction to it. Well, I thought it was you last time. As a result of this, it's funny.
Which I like the way that their powers again sort of like are like sort of checks and balances in a way. It's like he can't really stop her, but Frozone kind of can. But she can stop him. Like as powerful as he is, like she's sort of able to
rock,
at
paper,
least
scissors kind of thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how she actually gets him is by like luring him with just I'm your wife, like give me a kiss, and like it goes bad. But that's pretty much that scene. So like Mr. Incredible is now under the control of the screen slaver, aka Evelyn Dever, and
not
then
only them, but the rest of the supers that have been gathered by the DevTech guys as well, because they arrive at the household.
Yeah, well, that kind of was like an off-screen thing, though. Like that's like the reveal is that they come knocking.
Oh yeah,
that concludes
of course,
business over at the home.
They turn up in the household.
Opens up the door and you see them all with the shades on, and you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
And because Frozone was called, Frozone arrives. They say, we're here to get you out of here because there's a danger, and it's like that's interesting because he called me.
Yeah. Now, before this film was released, I was thinking, what's the way that they could like up the ante here? And I thought maybe you could kill off Frozone. That would really be like a bummer, and like that would be like a gutsy place to go. But as soon as they introduced the aspect of them getting like the mind control goggles, to go, oh, he's getting one of those. He's not going to die. He'll just be turned into a weapon for the villain, which is ultimately what happens. But it's a very entertaining.
You get a pretty awesome fight sequence. Yeah.
And I like how you could tell how far beyond the others he is in terms of mastering his abilities and just experience, because he's not like objectively more powerful than all of them, but he's able to stand up to them better than any single one of them would have been able to, just on the back of his skill.
Yeah, I love
point notwithstanding, he's able to keep a cooler head.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh God.
Like I said,
what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Blast.
You said point notwithstanding, and not pun notwithstanding, so I wasn't prepared for it when it happened. It's like,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I meant to say
you slipped up on that one, Evan.
Oh God! Please stop.
Am I giving you chills? Sorry, but yeah,
you're giving me brain freeze is what you're doing, dude. Like, please stop with this.
Yeah, that's.
I'm a snowflake. I can't take it.
Let's press.
Yes. Your frost really bites.
Let's press freeze on this one. The fight ends. They call the Incredible.
What's really terrible about that is all the comments we'll get will be about that.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna be great.
We apologize, guys.
We're not gonna be thoughtful at all.
We apologize. Please don't talk about that. And if you're gonna add them, add one. You can add one pun. So. The Incredible arrives because Dash calls it again, button pressing. Summons it to that position. I love the thought process of Lucius, where it's like, guys, press this button and input your voice command, and it's like Incredible, Frozone activation. It's a simple thing, but it was such a clever idea to have.
Like, why wouldn't he have access, considering how good friends they are?
Yeah, precisely.
Many presumably adventures they've been on together.
The idea that you need that to give somebody else clearance to
precisely
use it.
Yeah, they can't,
because otherwise they
obey
just
them.
walk up and use it.
Yeah, they won't just obey him or obey them until he's told them to put the voice command in. I love it. It's just genius, small idea, and it gets them out of there as he gets captured. It sucks that he gets captured because he was doing so well, but obviously he's massively outnumbered and trying to get the kids out specifically. So I buy it.
It's also to make the ending like more. I do like this part because although Dash hasn't had that much to do, I do like that for a moment it is like the kids driving the bus on saving the day here, without any sort of help from the more experienced members that we're familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand why they did this for sure. It fits. The realization, of course, when they're back in the car and they're driving away, and it's like, so what do we do? And it's like, Jack just sat there. Jack just sat there as well. It's just use Jack.
I like that Jack like puts on like his super mask upside down. Like it's cute and stupid and funny.
Brilliant. I love it. We're kind of getting to the climax though. This really, aren't we? The action climax. We have the Maul gathering on the Everjust, the awesome ship
yacht.
design. Yeah, the yacht.
This is like the most
villains.
like this is the most James Bondy thing like in this film. I love this. The fact that like a plane like sort of like outcrops from it. It's just it's so or a jet, whatever it is. Like it's just so cool. And like the monochromatic scheme, like it's just everything's like white and sleek and just interlaced and awesome. I love it.
And paired with that, then the immediate brightness of the sky. You know, they always have the world's ambience fit what kind of message they're trying to send in the scene as well, as we said earlier. So it just fits. You know, it's not night, it's not midday, it's not dusk or anything. It's pure bright sunny midday. Fits with the kind of message they're trying to sell.
No, this is a lengthy conclusion or like climax. It's like an extended action sequence, basically. I don't think we need to talk too much in depth about it.
Just the beat specific.
There's some highlights, but not.
Yeah.
This is where it comes
in.
in.
We should also mention this is when they have the live broadcast with
the setup for it.
Under mind control.
Yeah, we should mention the setup for it and then just get into our bullet points for what we think about this sequence.
Well, effectively, they've been picking up this broadcast so they can announce the undoing of the Sokovia Accords. Basically, they're trying to get the supers brought back into action, and the ambassador from previous in the film is the one who's going to make signing the paper. Basically,
makes sense.
Very
as you mentioned, that you made mention makes sense to have her being sort of the spearhead for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like as well that each nation that's come together to do this has their own kind of superhero representative.
Yeah,
as well. I could have done with them. Yeah,
though.
I could have done with them out being so incompetent. Like I would actually like this gathering to sell the idea of superheroes who come back, not say why they shouldn't.
Yeah, it was a
again,
vaguely Russian-looking guy who just looked like, "What are you exactly?" Like that was the most. Don't bring him.
Yeah, and I think there was a beef eater
Russian,
as well
just,
for the Brits. I can't remember if that's the case, but god.
Yeah.
But they don't sell the idea to me.
Most of the big heroes were killed off by syndrome, so you kind of gotta work with what you got.
True, but
can't be choosy.
But still,
what if that guy was just called the Beef Eater? Like you know what I mean? Like and like what would his powers actually be? But
the other thing actually I want to mention this because I didn't mention it before. When we talk about the superheroes being brought in, the ones that've been inspired, worthy of note, my first thought when I saw them was, oh god, this is bad. Superheroes. This is why superheroes shouldn't be a thing, because they're not all Elastigirl. There has to be some check against this. You can't have the incompetence that we're seeing here be given free reign effectively. So I meant to mention that actually. I was almost like the tone of the film was going to be switching in that direction for me, and it didn't. And it's not a problem, but I like that it's coming up again here. There's that question in the back of your mind thinking, is this necessarily a good idea, or are they just gonna? Is some non-pro just gonna screw up and ruin everything like 2 weeks down the line?
I mean, that's possible.
It's just something I was thinking about at the time.
But the good news is that The Incredibles already screwed up at the beginning of the film, so there's that. Things can only get better.
Yeah. But they make the announcement. They have the live broadcast go up, and the screensaver strikes again, effectively.
Yeah. Now and the idea being that Evelyn is going to make it appear to the world stage that the supers have gone rogue and are in fact a threat, thereby crippling Winston and any other future attempt at trying to get them back to the status they once had, which would obviously be the she's going to do this by crashing the yacht into the city. And that's collateral damage though. It's like necessary killing to prove her point. It's very minimalist. She's not going to drop a country onto the earth. But yeah, that's the setup for this sequence. Now we arranged a set of bullet points because we just want to talk about it. Like it's a very long sequence. I would say this probably takes 25 minutes of the movie or so. But so we can't talk about like things beat by beat. We have been here for a while already. So let's go ahead and go through these. Some of these include praise and criticisms. The first criticism is this is like the one moment in the film where I think you agree with me, at least, Callan.
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
like a little bit too much Jack. Jack is sort of like he's like the vehicle that gets the kids from one room to the next instead of them actually doing stuff. It's just Jack jokes, which is a little much.
Yeah.
Having said that, this is a kid's movie.
Precisely, yeah. It's not like it breaks anything. It's not destroying the tension or anything like that. To me, it was just, okay, dial it back a little bit. It's the point when he goes Jumbo. Jumbo Jack is like when
Jumbo,
I'm thinking, okay,
baby,
this is too much.
I was a little... Yeah,
That makes it
that's
cartoonish,
like
cartoonish proportions. That wasn't an intentional pun, but
it was the first time where I didn't find it remotely amusing. It was like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
I'm a little done with you, Jack.
Yeah,
but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And it takes some agency away from the other siblings, which is rather unfortunate, especially since, our next point is Violet gets a great, fight scene with Void.
I love that part. Yes.
Very well done. I love the creativity of the parrot, because it's a very simple one-note parrot, right? But what you can do with it in terms of positioning,
I mean, she's
and
literally
storyboarding.
Blink from X-Men.
Yeah, there are so many examples. She's basically Portal, the superhero. But
Portal is like the thing that would have popularized that in the modern mind.
Yeah, it's just anything about everything you can do with that when it comes to storyboarding. If I punch this wall, I can make that your head just by snapping my fingers. That kind of thought process and the different creative ways you can make use of that, they did a really good job with that in that scene.
I also like Violet using her force field abilities as sort of like a brace, just sort of something to push against or to like be a barrier from while she like pushes against something else. I like the way that she uses her abilities in this film. It's not massively different or upscaled from what she did in the first, but it's markedly different.
The biggest example is probably from the very start when she launches the kind of blade strikes with the energy projection. It's very cool.
It's more like what she did was like split something apart. It is like almost the way that she kind of created two and just pushed it apart, as opposed to creating like Psylocke blades or something. Because she doesn't do it again. It's more like just getting creative with the way she uses her force field ability. Yeah,
it's very cool. And again, it's the fact that it is all one ability. It's not just let me have multiple things. No, I'm just going to make creative use of one skill. I love that in any story, really.
Yeah.
The other one, though, talking about
creative
creative
fights. If we're an
fights.
R-rated movie, we'd get the whole put a force field inside someone's head and expand it situation, but couldn't really.
Can't go that deep.
Couldn't really get away with that.
Having said that, though, she should be able to pull as a here. Callan will know what that means.
Yep.
So that would be
as a here or a Suyin.
Oh yeah, but that
would be a thing you could do.
That's like in Evan's direction. But yeah, that's crazy.
This leads into another fight, of course, with Elastigirl versus Lucius and Bob.
Even more, because as short as this is, I love that every move counts. Because if Helen didn't do what she did immediately, she could have been beaten in this one. Because as we saw, Bob's not really going to be much on his own. But if Frozen freezes her and Bob strikes her, that could be a kill shot. Her. You know what I mean? That could be shot.
She had a split second to win, or she was going to lose, because Lucius is powered by nature. All he has to do is jump back and spray ice, and that's it. She's lost. So she had to get him in that first second, and the way she does is like, that was sleek.
I love that she uses him to briefly hinder Mr. Incredible enough, for her to free Frozone. I love that, the way that she did that. It was great.
Really damn cool. It's just the speed of it. The fact that you can tell what's happening in the very short space of time it shows you it at that high speed speaks a lot towards the direction and the storyboarding of the choreography as well. Very, very well done. Evelyn becomes a Bond villain because obviously she's realizing this is all happening. Okay, problem.
Yeah, this is she's straight up like Bond villain now.
Let's take off.
With the secret
I'm
jet.
a secret jet.
Come on, Winston. Come along.
Yeah, even the way she says it, and it's like, come on. It's like. This is what's best. I'm trying to help you, and it's like, no, I know what's best for me, and leaps down. It's again cheesy moment, but it perfectly suits his character.
Great moment for him.
Perfectly suits what we know about him.
I would have been completely fine with that. I just wish he'd had that moment to talk to her about her ideals a little bit before that point, or even afterward, whatever, or in the middle of it. I don't care, but just have that moment. He would have been a complete character for me with the same origin story. I love that idea of a shared origin, but going different trajectories. That's so cool.
The way I would have done it is I would have had him go to her kind of study, saying, "What are you doing? What's going on?" Have it be that confrontation, and then he realizes by the way of the room moving that she's then taking off in a jet. He doesn't realize it's a jet at that point and just flies off, and that's when he leaps out. You could have had that confrontation scene there. And it's like, no, let me off, what the hell? And just smashes open the door or something.
I think I'm just going to steal this idea from myself and just turn it into something else one day. I'll write a story about just a shared origin story. We said before how this is kind of the era of not really an era of reinvention, but that's kind of an unexplored story. Obviously it has been told somewhere. Everything has, but it's very much one of the lesser ones.
Yeah. Well, after you mentioned it before, Matt, I kind of want to see an Elseworld story in DC about if Bruce had a sibling.
Yeah,
Bruce had a twin.
Who witnessed the same thing. That would have been really I want to see that now. DC, if you're watching, get on that.
And then there's somebody
Seriously.
going like, "What the hell are you doing, man? Like dressing up as a bat every day? Like, there's better ways to get our, our point across." But yeah, anyway, no, I love Batman though. For those that are watching this, Batman's cool.
Awesome.
I'm not bashing Batman. It's just a funny thing to think about. But yeah, I guess like the next thing on our list is when Void actually gets Elastigirl onto Evelyn's getaway vehicle.
Yeah, I mean they decided to split up too. We should.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. They break apart and to go to the different parts of the ship because they've got to try and stop it.
Everybody gets like their assigned role. Like Frozone's trying to stop the ship or slow it down, rather. Bob is underneath or going underneath, trying to turn its direction, turn the rudder.
That's his second thing that he tries to do. He tries to go.
We'll get to that one in a second. But so when Void tries to get she does. She succeeds in getting Elastigirl up there. But I love that, like in a lesser picture, she would have just teleported her there.
Yep.
And that would have been it. I love how difficult this was, and like it was like a coordinated effort, and it took a few tries to get right, and it was uncomfortable for both parties involved, and it hurt.
Yeah.
Like it was not a streamlined thing at all, as it should be to be realistic. I love it.
It should have been a quick fix for her, but no, because you've got to aim the damn thing. She can't see where the portal's coming up. She can't see how to get the momentum right. She just kind of goes, and you said the struggle for both. Yeah, Destination's moving apart from anything else. Yeah. But you said it's a struggle for both. The uncomfortable ride for Elastigirl and the pain of actually impacting at the end, but also the fact that this is Void. This is one of her heroes, and she's like, "Oh God, I can't screw up. I've got to get this right." It was a kind of a personal struggle as well.
And it's not played for laughs though. Like in the middle of like an action sequence where you have that moment where it's just played for comedy. It's not that.
It's about the tension.
There's failure there, but it's not played for laughs, which I really like. So that was a high point for me.
It amps up the kind of the struggle of getting it to the jet itself and building up the delay of, okay, is she going to get that? Is she going to get that? Is she going to get that? Okay, she is. And it's not just a smooth, straight. Again, it's not a straight cut to the next scene. It's actually the journey is what matters. Same as we said previously. They know how to spend their time.
Now, Evan, why don't you take the next one? It's everyone's.
So you want me to uncrush? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I can't do that, I just can't.
I mean,
I just can't figure that out.
Would I ask you to
unpunch?
unpunch?
Like you can't unpunch something?
Yeah, I mean, it's like asking you to not punch.
It's such a stupid moment, but it's funny.
It's very stupid, but it got a laugh from me. I'm not gonna lie. I can laugh at stupid things.
It was the delivery
from time to time.
Yeah, it was just the sheer ridiculousness of the question. It's like, what?
Yeah, I guess hats off to Phil Lamar for delivering that ridiculous. Yeah. But yeah. That happened. Then we have the moment.
Again, this is something that people have brought up. Why couldn't he just punch through the?
Oh yeah, that's totally. Like,
or just unbend it or anything.
He's lifted.
He definitely could do it, but
yeah.
I mean, for me, I always justified it as like a timing thing. Like the amount of time it would take him to dig through that would, be wasting. But then again, him running all the way to the top, talking to his kids, and then jumping. Okay, so I guess it doesn't work.
Or maybe he just doesn't want to damage the ship. He doesn't want to break it apart or something.
I would have included a line where it's like, I'm gonna wreck the structural integrity by doing this. So like I'll just leave it the way it is and go do it another way. But that's it.
Or he tries and immediately you see a splinter on the wall or something. He has to worry about it.
And I'll be honest. The only reason I would include a line like that would have been out of foresight for like the nerds that are gonna pick it apart.
Precisely.
I will say, Mr. Incredible seemed a little less physically capable than he was in the last movie.
People have said that.
Yeah, but he didn't really use his strength.
That some people have said, but like it is noticeable because again, he could have punched through that if what he demonstrated.
Sure, but he doesn't really use his strength. Full stop. So there's not really that much to see how he is weaker.
People have said that, that's like one of the common criticisms I've heard. But like you said, Callan, he doesn't really fight a thing that's designed to challenge his strength in this one. So the one moment where I think it again. I can totally buy that him punching through that would just collapse the vessel or somehow make it sink.
Acknowledge that. Yeah.
The moment that I think that people have more validity is like when he had trouble fighting the Underminer. So guys were like, okay, yeah.
True. And perhaps the rudder as well, because the rudder, in terms of proportion, I mean, I don't buy it as a problem because again, it's underwater, it's huge, it's straining against him in the first place. I buy that as a struggle, but I could kind of guess, I suppose, where people are saying that he's straining too much. But yeah, it's not an issue for me.
Yeah.
It's very
My
mad,
issue with that one is
I mean,
like
it doesn't break the movie for me either. It is a little bit noticeable.
Sure.
Agreed.
And my slight criticism with the rudder thing is like, there's a moment where Dash is like, "Dad's been underwater for too long," and I'm
way
like,
too long.
Yeah, he has. He really has been. He's been down there for like 6 minutes. Like, what the hell? Like, he's probably dead.
Super
You know
lung,
what I mean?
His lungs
super
have
lung
super strength,
capacity.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
super
I
lung
hate
capacity.
that. I hate super lung capacity. Even Superman, I hate that ability. I can't
Cold
tell
breath,
you. Like, how much I hate
wind
that.
breath. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, you're this big, you only have so much room in there. Don't tell me you can blow infinitely. That's ridiculous.
Oh,
but
God.
anyway,
Talking about a comment
moving on
storm.
from-
Please don't address that, guys, in the comments. That's
I
another
meant that.
forum.
Like, I opened the door for that one legitimately.
Oh dear.
We have the
But
moment. We have
anyway.
the emotional moment of. Well, I say emotional. The arc moment, I guess, kind of Violet realizing someone has to watch Jack. Jack, this is her being smart. It's kind of showing that she's not just this emotional teen. She has got some sense on her, which is apparent throughout. But this is kind of the moment that's bigging that up. It's saying that okay, well, you guys are better to do that. I should watch Jack, and the parents are proud as a result. I like the moment. As minor as it is.
She's been I agree with that. It's a good send off for her. Or it's a good ending point or capstone for that, because she's sort of the one that has been challenging the notion of like, what should we be doing, like more like in the other conversations. So it's good for her to just take the back seat in this time and just go, I'll just sit and watch Jack because my abilities serve better for this now.
She's not purely being adversarial. She is actually thinking in both instances, but when she's disagreeing and when she's saying no, we have to do this. So it works well as a capstone.
Yeah, and then we cut back to Elastigirl getting, confronting Screenslaver on the jet, which I really do like how she changes the cabin pressure, puts on the thing to try and knock her out. That's clever.
I really do like this sequence. I also like this sounds like a fashionista comment, but I like Evelyn's outfit. I think it's cool, like for like a villain. It was just funny because like I have like this wardrobe thing with the Devers. I like his suit and I like her clothes. But anyway, they just look cool. Like they make evil. Well, he's not evil, but she makes evil look cool.
That's why Edna feels so threatened.
Oh God, yeah, villains commission her as well. You can just, I can so imagine a villain trying to commission a suit from her and like that being a tension kidnap scene.
True.
That'd be so cool. And like, what? You want me to do what? No, and then presses that superhero button.
True. Oh, that could totally.
That could be the next film.
Like, and they use Jack to capture her. Oh well, no, I like also the side note. I like that she was wearing like a kimono in this one, like not just her normal outfit. Like she doesn't just have like a standard outfit all the time. That's cool. But back on topic. That moment, I thought she was gonna die. Like when she was sent out of the.
I thought she
windshield.
died on the spot. Like that was brutal. That shot.
I could tell she wasn't because you see her screaming, going no, like when she's like out, so she's still clearly like alive. But
it was still a heavy impact though.
No, but okay, but she's not dead.
Oh no,
like,
of course, no.
But
That's what I mean. The shot kind of could have easily been. They could have gone that route, is what I'm saying. So it was the way they did kind of both worked for me. The fact that she's not dead, but that thing could have been what took her out. So
I thought she was gonna die. I thought she was gonna fall to her death.
Yeah,
like we're just never gonna see her again. Like that's what I thought was gonna happen. Obviously, the impact didn't kill her, even though it could have, but it didn't. You know what I mean?
It was very cool. I liked how visceral it was as a result.
Yeah. Because she shoots her like with the flare and like that's what sends her out. But I think the reason I think it probably doesn't kill her where it otherwise would is because I think she goes out back first, so the tank takes the brunt of the impact and shatters the glass.
Yeah,
I think that's what happens. Because she sort of flips before she's like sent out.
Yeah, it's a brutal hit.
But yeah, it's a really it is like it goes from like cheesy villain monologuing moment to like you're about to die to like, hey, Elastigirl maybe just killed somebody.
Yeah, precisely.
Pretty intense. Which she doesn't. She manages to save her in the end.
But it's still very cool. The fact they almost went there is interesting. The fact that you think and the fact that you believe it's possible as well. That says a lot about the film's delivery. The fact that you're like, oh, she's fine. There's none of that in this film. There's no point where I'm thinking, oh, of course they're all going to be fine. I know, obviously, the peripheral stuff like, the heroes are going to win. That's just classic. Everyone knows that. But the beats of how they get there, you're never left thinking this is ridiculous. Why are they showing me this? I'm not going to buy this. This is a lie. It fits all the time, which is very cool.
Mm-hmm. But then we're kind of like wrapping up now, like back.
They stop the ship and Elastigirl lands, and we get the line of like, "I missed Jack's first powers." I love that.
Yeah, that was fun.
And it like makes me think of like, how like families when their kid takes their first steps, there's like they tape it, and I'm just imagining them doing that, but with Jack running around or Violet turning invisible.
Yeah, Dash.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
I think that
Dash, sorry.
Bob even says like, I think he missed his first 17 or something. I think that's maybe where like the line comes from. But yeah, definitely people definitely went through and counted, and I think it is 17 or even more that he actually displays.
Wow.
Which is just nuts. But and Evelyn's arrested, and Callan, I know you included a note about like Violet has a line.
The line
that was pretty.
Yes, yeah. Well, Violet and all three involved really the conversation. Violet's like, I'm sure she's not going to get let out because she's rich. It's such a shame that the wealthy won't have to actually face this punishment. That kind of thing was cool. It was a nice sassy line from Violet. But the thing I like the most about that is that Evelyn's like, just because you saved me doesn't make you right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. And she's like, but you are alive. I like that it does make you alive. I like how that's a kind of a callback to the practical versus high-minded, quote-unquote, kind of discussion they were having back in the party, and the kind of how it represents both of these two's ethos, or lack thereof, as she calls it, because she thinks that she's a bit empty.
And then we get a comment from Winston expressing that he's happy that his twin sister's still alive too, despite all the terrible things she's done, which is nice.
Yeah, I do like that the two
Speaks
of them
to his
legitimately care about each other. Yeah, that's good.
And twins are closer, psychologically than regular siblings most often.
Yeah,
most often, not obviously.
Yeah.
There are exceptions as we
actually
see
I'm a twin and I hate my sibling. This is the first comment that was going to come up.
There is going to be that comment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm speaking general here, guys.
Of course. Yeah.
Anyway, like who cares?
Certainly in narratives, if nothing else.
You know who it's going to be? It's good. Like there's going to be that one guy that I talk about all the time that like always comments. I'm just going to let that hang there. You can wonder if it's you, viewer. But because I'm evil like that. But anyway. I remember, Callan, you brought it up like a few weeks ago that like Winston sort of hastily changes the subject, like when Violet brings that up. As Gwen, I thought he had a better send off than that, but when I looked into it, he doesn't. You're right. Like he kind
of hand waves it. It's like, you're tyke. It's like he's not doing anything wrong. It's kind of like you're a kid and I can't talk to a kid about such big issues. I don't know how to do that. So it's like, you're not wrong. He's basically saying you're not wrong.
Yeah, he's basically. You're right. His reaction is you're not wrong.
I just love that moment. Obviously, I would have gone with a better capstone, like you said before, with the conversation that he had with Evelyn. But it works perfectly fine. These are characters I wouldn't mind seeing in the next film if they have another one. These are people I would. I'd like to see how they return. Even Evelyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't need to be. She shouldn't be the main focus again.
Definitely
but
not.
I'd be fine with her reappearing. Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually kind of like, to see like in the third film, like see Winston kind of become like he kind of fills the position that Agent Dixon did, kind of become
Dicker.
Like the
Dicker. You keep calling him Dixon.
What did I did?
Agent Dicker. Yeah.
Dicker, sorry, kind of fills the position as like a third party advisor that kind of helps the supers around, kind of like as a way to try and make up what his sister did. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, being just the PR guy, that's all he has to be. It would be cool for him to be like the team liaison type person, and having her come up.
That's the word I was looking for. Liaison.
Yeah, and when she's get up and she inevitably gets out of prison, I would like to have her be a supportive role. Like just she's. There is not necessarily she changes her mind because she's not the type of character that would, but something about her in terms of how they write it and narrate changes it so that she's now a force for the supers good. In some way, there's a lot they could work with that.
A conversation between her and Edna would be really.
Oh my god, yeah, her and Edna. Even it's just consultation. Like it starts
because
as consultation.
They're almost the same person.
You made a suit for Elastigirl.
That's
how it would start.
Right, but they have like similar abilities or capability, like mentally, like she's on like Edna's level, like as far as like genius and technology goes. But like it would be like Edna doesn't have that antagonism with the supers, and her like sort of talking her into like, hey, like like maybe we don't need them, but we need good people, and we need them to be good. Like that is like the message.
Precisely.
That doesn't get.
Yeah, because I could almost see like a post-credit scene at the end of this one if they'd chosen to do it, where Edna visits her in like her detention cell or something, and it's just like, so I hear you helped make some of Elastigirl's equipment. Just end it as that, and we see where that goes. However they wanted to do it. Just there's a lot they could play off with these characters. Then their stories aren't done if they choose to have that be the case.
It's like
hopefully not.
And ultimately that's the question of like any sequel is like, is it necessary or was it warranted? And in this case, it's like, you never needed to make it. You didn't. But I really like that they did. I love these characters. So I'm glad to see more of them in this particular case.
More can be a good thing sometimes. Thank God.
Right. But we'll say that like for our final thoughts. Basically, we get the wrap up, and Tony and Violet start to date again. Which we get another sequence like, "Aren't you the girl from Hi? I'm Violet Parr." That's brilliant.
Yeah.
We're not doing this again.
Yeah. And in the car, with we say, "Oh, well, we can get closer."
Introducing everyone.
Yeah, the family being.
Like,
the
so
family.
you're a close family.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's
what,
like,
do you want us to get closer?
Yeah,
back in the
Bob
chair.
is like, no, we're gonna be sitting in the movie, and there's like, no, they're gonna drop us off. Again, such a teenage thing. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny.
Which kind of makes me wonder. I wonder if Bob ever told, Helen about what he did. Taking them to that restaurant.
Somebody will have done. Violet, if nothing else. Did you know what Dad did?
I feel like he's still not aware, even by the end of the movie, that was a terrible mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's brilliant. But yeah,
he's still doing it in the car. He's still doing that. Like he's like, I'm in the cool dad mode. I'm gonna hook my daughter up. It's like, no, you're not. You're not dad. Like you're ruining it. Yeah. But
the robbers from the first film fly past in their cars, and the police are chasing them. So that kind of interrupts the date night. And they she literally drops him off at the cinema. And says, "We'll be back in a second," and they drive off to be.
Here's some money for popcorn and tickets.
Yep. To be the Incredibles.
Although I will say. It's like, okay, you guys haven't learned your lesson. You're gonna go ruin something again.
Yeah,
we're right back at the beginning of this movie. So yeah, in retrospect,
they can't just say no one else do anything. Let Elastigirl handle this.
They should have said the police have got it, and like that would have been like that would have been like, yeah, Evelyn, maybe she did have a point. We'll let them have a crack at it.
Yeah,
we're going to the family. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was very cool. I like the ending. It's funny, charming, and obviously it comes after the actual finale. It's not that this is the end of the story. Same as the first film. The beats that they hit sequence wise for each of the part of this film line up with the originals. Simple things like the plane crash in the first one was a scene that I don't think was quite matched in terms of intensity in this one. Still lines up with the. It can't be. Yeah, no, it's not a criticism. It couldn't be. But the fact that the place is in similar location and intensity to the ambassador's crash.
For them to top the plane sequence, somebody would have had to been killed off for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it would have almost cheapened the idea of it as well, because it's rehashing it again. You had to up the stakes. I would have preferred it to not be a part of the thing. But yeah, just different beats throughout the story. The intro sequence, the ending here with attached to Tony Reinger, the ambassador's crash, the fight sequences, the people meeting up at certain points, Frozone's entering the picture at different points, even though he's in it more here. It all kind of lines up, and I like it. It's a nice bit of parity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that kind of sums up the movie as a whole.
Yeah, so that's basically The Incredibles 2.
Mm-hmm. I guess now we're going to move into our personal criticisms, then move into some general criticisms. Unless does anyone have anything else to say?
Yeah, we kind of covered most of them throughout.
We kind of talked about all these, really.
Yeah. Just wondering if anyone has anything else to add.
I don't think so. No, do you have anything, Matt?
No, we had like sort of a list of ones that we had bullet points for to discuss at the end of this, but I think we sprinkled them in where they came up like more naturally throughout the discussion earlier. There were things like Dash being a bit misused, Jack being a little smidge too much overused at the end with like Jumbo Jack. We've already said that like we hope if they make another film that this time the villain should be somebody who's a super. It shouldn't be like this us versus them thing, or the supers versus normal people, or like finding their place in society again. Because although I'm happy with how that worked out in both of these two films, if it happens again, that'll be like just overdone for me. Like we've had it twice already and it's worked out. Like don't press your luck and try to get another story out of that. Do something different. And then general criticisms that we've heard, that these were not our criticisms, but general criticisms that we've heard have been like the villain being a bit too predictable. I don't agree with that because the film didn't try to hide it really. And the twist villain being like an overused thing. It's fair enough. It's a trope. But I mean, this villain doesn't rest on that. Like that's not the crux of her character. She has a lot more going on for her.
The
and
twist
I just
isn't
love
the
the way
point.
that she.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's far from the most interesting thing about her. She's still
Yeah.
more
It's
than
it's
compelling
it's,
enough
it's a
on
side
her own.
it's a side thing. It's part of the plot. It's nothing to do with the character. It doesn't rest. You know, the power of her as a villain or as a presence in the film doesn't rest on the surprise of her twist. It's just completely irrelevant. So it's not a flaw at all for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then my final thoughts on it, like a fantastic musical score, excellent animation, that kind of goes without saying. The cast, everybody that returned, thank you. Everybody that was new, good work. I will say this, though. Craig T. Nelson and Samuel L. Jackson are in their 70s, so if you want another one done properly, like with like the actual voices,
Can't
and
wait
not,
for
like,
seniors.
yeah. Let's get on that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it now. Which I think they probably will. I mean,
please.
this has done a very good job in the box office.
I mean, it's done well over $1 billion, so I can't imagine that they won't want to do another one. But
have
that
they
doesn't mean
actually released
should.
any statements of them like thinking about it? Like, is there any indication that
I think they said they haven't dismissed the idea. I think they've said.
Yeah, there's somebody who's. I mean, anytime anything goes over $1 billion, they're going to be open to it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right.
So, like,
But I like that it
we'll
wasn't
see.
a complete sellout, you know, or in any way a sellout. This was a really, really good film. It could have bombed at the box office, and it still would have been one of the classics for me.
And they like knocked like a year off the production time, I think, because this was supposed to come out after Toy Story 4, but they swapped spots because this was closer to completion than Toy Story 4 was. So they lost time and still gave us something here. So I'm not sure that Brad Bird himself is entirely satisfied with this. I don't know his opinion of it, but I think he should be proud of it. I think he and his team did a great job. Myself.
Completely agree. Loved the film.
Without a doubt.
Biggest thing for me, I can't decide whether I prefer it to the first one or not. Which
Yeah, I'm
the fact
still
that
working
the
that
fact
out.
that you can't tell,
That
that
too.
speaks volumes for me.
I'm glad that we're theorizing a project where we count down our top 20 Pixar films or least favorites as well, because that gives me time to like figure that out, because I'm not sure. Like there are things I definitely prefer about the first one, but there are many things I think this did as well or better, and I just love the dynamic of these characters. It's so great. You know, I love it.
Yeah.
Completely
I definitely need to see it more times before I really commit to a decision like that.
Yeah, and the fact that it's that close just tells you everything. I mean, it's not. That's
Yeah.
very difficult to pull off in a sequel, let alone a Pixar film of classic nature as The Incredibles is. But with that said, that's everything we wanted to discuss, I think, today, right, guys?
Yep. So I think that's it. But I will say that the next Pixar film, it's not the next project that we have on Fanalysis, of course, but the next Pixar film that we're going to be looking at is Toy Story. And, you know, we're going to be sort of going through these one at a time, or at least the good ones, or the ones that we think are well worth talking about individually before we get to our top 20. And thanks for joining us this time. And I've sort of said my piece. Anybody else have anything to add, or are we
Nope.
finished?
I hope you enjoy,
I'm
guys.
good.
I'm Reti 4, and I still don't have an outro.
That's right, I guess. And I'm GreyJedi 91, and I'm signing off for once properly.
And I'm Evannova 95, seeing us off. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.